Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi. Hope you all are doing well. So basically we are going to start a new series and that series is for the interview, right? So from today onwards, I'll be letting you know that basically what type of questions are frequently asked in the interviews, in the Python interviews which you go to give, right? And in that basically I'll be dealing with that particular questions which are frequently asked, and I'll be letting you know the answer that in what we actually need to give out the answer. It's not that someone asks you that what is difference between list and tuples, you're just gonna tell 10 to 15 differences in that. No, it's not the idea. You need to be very accurate and very precise with your answers. You need to give out only the main points. There is no need to tell a whole story about that particular topic, right? This is the thing that we actually follow whenever we just go to give some interviews. So that particular thing I'm just going to let you know. I'll be telling you that in what ways you need to give out the answers, that what are the things which you need to give, and what are the most asked question in the interviews, for the Python interviews, right? So let's get started without wasting out the time. So here goes my very first question, that what is the difference between a list and a tuple? So we all know that what are lists and tuple, right? So lists and tuples are basically some another data types which are used to store different data type values, right? So in lists and tuples as well, we can store different values that are having some different data types. This is the use of list and tuple, right? But the use of for both of them is actually same. But what's the difference which comes in the list and the tuple? So let's discuss that thing. The very first difference which is in between list and tuple is that lists are mutable. I would just write here lists are mutable. So I would just write this like this. So basically the very first difference that comes is that lists are actually mutables. Now what about the tuples? So tuples are actually, so I would be writing here tuples are immutable. Immutable. So like this. Now basically what's the difference between a mutable and an immutable? So mutable are the ones which can change and immutable are the ones which actually cannot change. Right, so lists are the mutables one. So it means that list can change and tuples are the immutable one. So that means tuples cannot change. Now what do I just mean from this change and cannot change and all those things? So this means that in list you can just perform some enhancements after you have declared the list. Enhancements in the sense that you can change some values, you can add some new values, you can delete some previous values, and all that things, all these operations actually you can perform in the list. But in tuples it is not at all allowed. In tuples you are not allowed to do some enhancements after you have declared the tuple. So in that case it means you cannot add some new values, you can not delete some previous values, and all those things you cannot apply in tuples, right? So this is the very first difference. Now moving towards the second difference. The second difference goes like that lists are slower than tuples. So I would just write here lists are slower, okay? And I would just write here that tuples, okay, just 1 second like this, okay. And I'll be adding that tuples are, let me come a little down, tuples are faster, right? So this is the very second difference that goes here. The lists are slower and the tuples are faster. This you all know, right? Now the very third thing that comes here is all the syntax, that syntax for declare a list and syntax for declaring a tuple. There is slight difference in between both of these, right? Let me just add on that thing. So whenever we just declare the list, so syntax for list is basically, I'm just writing here syntax, and that is, let's say I just take a and a is equal to, and I just put on the large brackets, and inside this I'm writing whatever I just want. So lists are always declared inside the large brackets, and moving towards the tuples, so tuples are always declared inside the small brackets, right? So these are the three very basic and the very important differences between the list and tuple. So if someone in the interview, if your interviewer is gonna ask that basically what is the difference between list and tuple, so we're just gonna list all these three differences here, right? Now this is the very first question that goes here. I hope that you have got a clear enough fair idea, and even if you just want to learn more about list and tuple and go a little bit deeper into this topic, so you can just refer the I button. So on the I button, my particular video for list and tuple is mentioned. Just click on the I button and you'll be able to visit that video, right? Let's move on to the very second question, and my second question goes at, is Python case sensitive? So what's your answer for this question? And basically I hope that your answer will be absolutely right, that yes. The answer for this question is that yes, Python is a case sensitive language. So let's say you have declared a variable that is a small a, and in the print statement you're writing capital A, and capital A is not declared in that question. So it is gonna give you error that basically this is not defined. Other than this, let's take another example. Let's say you are using out the print statement. So in that print statement the P is a small, but if you make that P capital, so in that case this will be a case sensitive language, because as the things are actually declared, you just need to write out that particular thing only. You cannot change anything into that thing, right? If you miss a particular semicolon also, if you miss the colon also, then also it gives you the error, right? So that is actually which is the terms which specifies that yes, Python is a case sensitive language, right? So this goes about the Python. Second question goes like this. Now third question, that what does colon -1 do? Now my third question goes here like this. Now this is actually a very important question that is actually asked in many a times. Okay, what does colon -1 do? So actually if you have learned Python very seriously and very carefully, so first of all you'll be able to guess that this is a question from the slicing techniques, right? We have a slicing technique in Python programming language. So this is a particular topic that comes in the slicing technique. Now what you need to do here is that have a look that firstly this is a slicing. Other than this, here basically what is used, so the thing that is actually used here is negative indexing, right? You are able to use out the negative indexing here, right? That is -1. So now let me let you know that how you are just going to answer out this question. So let me just write that colon -1, right? This colon -1, it is actually, I would be writing here, is used to reverse, I would be writing it's used to reverse the order, is used to reverse the order of an array or a sequence right? Now basically here what I just meant from this used to reverse the order of an array or a sequence, if you have just understood about, like you have learned about the string slicing. So in the string slicing, if we just write colon -1, so what does that actually results to us? That actually results to us the reverse of the array, right? That actually results us, if we just want to print out the reverse of an array, we just write this colon -1. But why I am not referring to particular strings here? Because I am not given anything that here I have taken a string, I have taken an array, I have taken a list. What actually I have taken, right? So in this case, you are not going to take a specifically topic that is a strings or any array. So you're just going to write that colon -1 is used to reverse the order of an array or a sequence. Basically, this is the example for the colon -1. Now, if someone asks you to write out a program to use this colon -1, then in that case, basically what you're going to use. So in that case, basically you are just going to write a program. Okay. So for that, basically you can just use out the program for the string sizing, for an array or anything you can just write here. So let me just take out the example. Let me just take out the program for the array here. Okay. So okay, just 1 second. Let me firstly close out this thing. And let me take this question a little bit more down. Fine. So if you are asked to write out the program, the very first thing is that you're just going to use the array, right? So for that, using out that thing, you need to write import array as ARR. Let's say this is the array which we have imported here, and ARR is a short form which we have given to this particular array. Right, other than this, I need to take a variable. So I would always refer you to take some meaningful variables. So not just take A, B, C, D, something like this. No, do not do that thing. Actually, just take a particular variable, a meaningful variable that is actually referring that, okay, what are you actually storing into this variable, which refers that, okay? So I'll be just taking out the variable. Let's say that variable is, I'll be, let's say, taking that array, okay? So let's say my variable name would be dec_array. Okay, so that is actually my declared array. Okay, dec_array. Other than this, I'll be writing here the short form, that is arr dot. I'll be using the array, and here I'll be declaring some array. Let's say, okay, so let's say my array goes here like this. I'm just writing here the array that is, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And I'll be closing out the bracket, and just let me move this side so that I can just close out this as well right here. Fine. So this is actually, I just mentioned the things, right? I just took a variable, and in that I just stored the array. And after that, what I just need to do is that I have to use out the variable that I have taken, that is declared underscore array, and I've just put out the this like this, and I've just put out the colon minus 1. Okay, I would just write it like this. Now, this is actually how you just do it. Now, when you're just going to reverse your array, so in that case, you'll be getting the output as array, and in the bracket, you'll be getting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, first of all, this I would be present. Other than that, you'll be getting 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So your all the numbers which you are having here, all of these things would be reversed. So this is the use of colon minus 1. Okay, if someone specifically asks to you that, okay, you need to perform this colon minus 1 in a string. So in that case, basically you can just refer to a particular string, and then you can just take a string and use out the example for that. But if anything is not at all specified, so you are just going to answer that this is used to reverse the order of an array or a sequence, right? And if the solution is asked to you, so you are just going to write out this program. Other than this, what I just can write here is that I will just writing colon minus 1. Okay, so I'm just writing this reprints. This reprints are reversed copy. This represents a reversed copy of ordered ordered. This reprints a reversed copy of ordered data structures. Okay, of ordered data structures such as an array, or a list, and comma, the original array or list remains unchanged. Okay, that's the main thing. So I'm just writing here the original data structure. I'm just writing here DS for the data structure. Okay, the original data structure remains unchanged. So the very thing that goes here is that if you're just going to apply this colon minus 1, so in that case there will be no effect on your real list or real array, whatever you have mentioned. Okay, it will actually just give you the output for that particular thing where you have just used out that colon minus 1. It will not at all affect to your real array. So this is also a very important question which comes, that if you just use out some slicing technique, so that slicing technique, does that actually effect on your real strings, real data structures or not? So in that case the answer would be no, it does not affect my real structure. It basically the original data structure, whichever it is, that actually remains the unchanged one. Okay, this is the answer for this particular question. So I hope I had made this thing very clear to you, that how we just basically use out the slicing technique, that is colon minus 1, right? Now let's move out to some another question which we have here. Let me just write out that. Okay, I'm so sorry. Let me just take it to upside like this. Okay, so the fourth question goes like that, how you comment multiple lines in Python. Okay, so first of all, the very first question is that what is multiple lines in Python? So in that you are just going to write. I will just let you know. So I'll be writing here multi-line comments. I'll be writing here multi-line comments appear in more than multi-line comments appear in more than one line. Okay, so the multiple line comment as actually that basically just when you just want to comment multiple lines at one particular go. Okay, when you just want to comment multiple lines at one particular go, so in that case this multi-line comment is actually used. Okay, now we all know that comment is actually made in Python programming language whenever we just put the sign, that is hash, right? When we just put out the sign, that is hash. So we just put out this hash for commenting a particular line. Okay, so I can just write here that hash is a symbol. Hash is a symbol which is used to comment multiple lines, I can just say. It is multiple or it is single, that depends on that how much number of lines you want to comment. This hash works on one as well, and it works on basically n number of lines as well, right? So I can just write that hash is symbol which is used to comment lines. Now, how to comment multiple lines in Python? So in that basically we have a short trick that actually applies. So what you just need to do is that you need to first of all, so the short trick, let me just write out that short trick here as well. So I'm just writing here that basically shortcut method. I can just write that shortcut, right? So the for shortcut method, what you can just use is that you can just select out all the lines which you are having, right? You can just select out all of the lines which you are having, and then what you just need to do is that you need to do control plus and backslash. Okay, just with the help of your mouse and your cursor, just comment, just select out all the lines which you want to comment, and after that just simply use out control and backslash. Backslash which is just present at the other side of the shift. Okay, so just do that thing, and this is the shortcut for commenting multiple lines in Python programming. So how to comment multiple lines? So this is the answer, that you can just select all the lines which you want to comment with the help of the right click and your like iPad, whichever you're just using, or mouse, whatever you're just using. And other than that, just simply use control plus backslash, and that will comment all of your lines. Okay. Now, my very last question, which is, what are negative indexes and why are they used? So the answer for this question is basically, so first of all, understand out the question that what are negative indexes and why are they used. So the question goes that basically why we just use out the negative indexing and what is negative indexing. Okay, so in that case you can just write out the answer like this, that basically sequence in Python are indexed in the positive and the indexing numbers. Okay, basically the sequence in Python are indexed, and it basically consists of the positive indexing as well as the negative indexing, right? So let's first of all discuss about the positive indexing here. So I'll be writing here positive indexing. Now positive indexing, in positive indexing what happens, it basically starts from the 0th index, right? We basically go from the 0th index up to the nth index, whatever you just having into your string, right? So positive indexing is basically starting from the 0th index, and then it basically the first index is your 0 index, and second is your second index is your 1, third index is your 2, and it goes on like this, right? Basically it follows up this procedure. So it is about the positive index. Now what about my negative one? So I'll be just writing here negative indexing. Negative indexing. So my negative indexing is actually, negative indexing start from -1. Okay, -1. One more thing regarding the positive indexing, that positive indexing is always stand from left towards the right direction. So this is left towards the right, like this, right? And negative indexing is always stand from right towards the left, right towards the left, like this. This means reverse of your data structure, whatever you are just using. Right, so negative indexing starts from -1, then -2, and up to -n, whatever the number of things you are having. So in positive indexing, it starts from the 0th index, but in negative indexing, it starts from the first index, -1 index, right? Now, firstly, it will be -1, then -2, then -3, -4. So let me just draw one diagram like this here, and let's say here we are having some characters, let's say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Let's say these are the things, right? So positive will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, like this. Okay, just let me come down so that it's properly visible. It would be like this. And if you're using negatives, it will be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7. It goes on like this. Fine. So this is the very one between the negative and the positive indexing. That's how we just do. Now, what's the use of the negative indexing? Why we just use it, right? I'll be giving you the answer for that question. The use of negative index, is to remove any new basically the use of negative index is to remove any new line spaces from the string. Okay, from the string. Very first use of the negative indexing is that it is used to remove any new line spaces from the string. Okay, and basically and allows the string allows the strings to basically accept, and allow the string to accept the last character, just let me come down, last character that is given that is given as, let's say I just take a variable that is a and I just write colon -1. So basically this is actually help us to take out the last character as well in the negative indexing, right? Now, other than this, what is the another use of the negative indexes? So the negative index is also used to show out the index to represent the string in correct order. Okay, this is the another use that negative indexing is also used to show the index. Okay, to show the index to represent the string in correct order. It shows the basically the index to represent the string in the correct order, right? So this is basically this is the use of the negative indexes. And what are negative indexes, that I have already told you, and this is the use of the negative indexes. So these were some 5 questions that we have discussed today in the very first part of this Python interview series. The very first question was just one more thing that basically, okay. So the very first question, first let me discuss that. I will let you know afterwards. Fine. So very first question goes that what is the difference between list and tuples and Python, right? Second question goes that is Python case sensitive. Third one goes that what does colon -1 do? Fourth one is how to comment multiple lines in Python. And the fifth one goes what are negative indexes and why are they used? And if you just want to get more detail about the negative indexes, so in that case you can just click on the above I button and you will be redirected to the particular video where I have explained about the negative indexes as what are Python packages. Now here basically in this condition that if someone is asking to you what are packages, so we just need to give a very simple and a very small definition for the Python packages, right? We all know that basically Python has many libraries, many packages, many modules installed in it. Basically they are helpful in making different types of projects, doing different activities with the help of Python programming language, right? And basically this is the only reason that's why actually Python is preferred most nowadays, because the modules, the packages which we are having in Python, it actually makes the Python a very easy language to use and a very easy language to write out the codes with. Right, so let's start with the definition for the Python packages, right? I will just put this one here. Let's start writing out the definition for the Python package. So if someone's asked you that what are Python packages, so you are going to tell that Python packages. Okay, I would just write out the things. You can just note them down on a notebook or something wherever you're just making out your notes. Okay. So Python packages are namespaces. I would just write here like this. Okay. Python packages are namespaces containing multiple modules. Now basically listen it in this way, understand it in this way, that basically we have different modules in Python, right? Now that modules come, and when this multiple modules come and just gathered together, so that is actually called a package. Okay, let's say you are having some one or two some notebooks with you, right? In that basically one or two single, that will be called your one notebook or your two notebooks, right? But in case wherever you are having a bunch of notebooks, that will be called a bulk of your notebooks, right? That will be a complete package at that place. So that the same thing applies here with the Python also, that Python packages are namespaces containing multiple modules. So in a package basically there are multiple modules. So do not forget this definition regarding the packages, because there is a lot of you can say a lot of confusion regarding the libraries, regarding the modules, regarding the packages and all those things. Okay, so make sure to remember that packages contains different multiple modules in it, right? So this is definition for the Python packages. Right, let's move on to the second question for now. So the second question for now is that what are docstrings in Python? Now basically what are docstrings in Python? Now basically this is a very common question which is actually asked, because whenever we just study about the functions in Python programming, at that place this is a docstrings is a topic which actually comes and plays a very important role when you are just defining a function. Let me just give you a scenario that actually where docstrings are firstly used, and I'll be telling you that what are actually docstrings, right? So let's say you are making a project, and you are having a team of 6 to 7 members. Okay, you are making a project on Python. So in that, basically you just need to declare many functions onto that project, right? Let's say some functions are defined by the first person, some functions are defined by the second, some function defined by the third, and like this. Okay, let's say there are 3 persons in that project which are coding, okay, which are just doing the code in Python. So you are basically define different functions onto that. Now at that particular place, when you just define on that functions, now let's say you have defined 10 functions, okay, each person is defining 10 functions, so that consists of actually 30 functions. Now it's very hard for you, actually only for you to remember that basically what is that into 10 functions, right? Let's say you understand that what is in that 10 functions, it's absolutely fine. Now let's say you pass on your code to your next friend, okay, to your friend who is actually coding in Python as well, just pass on your code to that friend. Now how will that person be able to understand that in this function what you have done, in this function what you have performed, and what is the thing that you have done? Now let's say the 20 functions which are now actually you have made 10 functions, your friend had made 10, both combined to the 20 functions. Now the third person who is coding, all that 20 functions have been passed on to that third person. So how will that third person understood that, okay, how like what are these 20 functions, what do they belong, what work do they actually perform, why are they defined, what is the function that they are performing, right? How will that person know? So in this is the case, this is a scenario, this is a place where you need the docstrings. So docstrings are actually written inside the functions, and that are basically declared, and that lets you know that, okay, these are the things, these are the functions which you are performing inside your function. Okay, so this is the first use of docstrings which we have in Python programming, that docstrings are used to basically declare inside the function, and they basically inside that docstring you just write that what is your function actually doing. So whenever at any place when your program is completed, or any place whenever you just write like call that function and with the help of the docstring, so that will actually result you in the output that, okay, this was a function which was performing this particular thing. So it's easy for you to understand, to analyze that what is particularly written in code. If you just pass on your code to some another person, okay, then in that place also that person is able to understand that, okay, these are the things which you have written in this function, and this is the thing that you are performing. If you have simply given out the names that, okay, let's say this is the like this is maximum, this is minimum, and all those things, and how will that person be able to understand that what you are actually trying to do in that function, right? So I hope I just made this thing very clear to you that what's the use of docstrings. Okay, now let's move on to the definition, and let's write out some definition for this docstrings, and let's see that how we can just give out the answer for this question if it comes in the interviews, right? So what are docstrings in Python? So I'm just writing that docstrings, doc for the very first thing that remove this this misconcept from your mind that docstrings are comments. No, they are not at all comments, right? Here one question can also come that are docstrings and comments same? So always write that no, docstrings and comments are not at all same. The very first reason that comments are written with the help of the hash sign, and docstrings are written between the inside the semicolons, inside the inverted commas. You can just call that anything, inside the semicolons or inside the inverted commas. So do not mix up both of the things. So docstrings and comments are not at all same. Okay, so I will just write that thing as well here, so that you just keep that thing and make your own notes for that. So docstrings are not comments. Okay, the very first thing that you need to tell that person, the interview, that docstrings are not comments. Okay, so what are actual docstrings? So they are, you can just call this, they are documentation strings. Documentation string. Documentation meaning you all understand, right? That basically documentation consists of all the like write up and all the things of that particular topic which you are talking about, right? So doc strings are a kind of documentation string. From the name as well, you can just understand a doc is the short form which is used for documentation, right? And strings is already written. So these are the documentation strings. Okay, now basically how do we just write out the docstrings? So I would just add that they are written, as I mentioned, that they are written inside the triple semicolons. They are written inside I would just write here inside triple quotes. So you can just put that as quote. So let me just let you know how to write that. So you just write 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 2, 3 like this. And between this, you just write whatever the docstring you want to write. And 1, 2, 3, it will be closed up like this. So like pair of 3 semicolons are needed. Okay, so in that case, one side 3 will be there and another side 3 will be there. So total 6 will be there and a pair of 3 will be there. Individual they are 6 and with the pair they are 3. Okay, please make sure to like understand this thing in a very clear way. Okay, fine. Now, basically, it's not the thing that they are assigned to some variable or something like that. No, you do not do that thing. Simply, you just define your function. Inside that, you just put on the semicolons and start writing that docstring which you just want to involve in that. And basically, you just write out the whole function, whatever you just needed. Okay, let me just give you an example here that how are they actually used. Okay, just let me quickly take out this next thing to a downside. After that, we'll be just writing. Fine, let me just come here. This place. Okay, let's say I just write out a function and I just make a function for the addition. Now, basically, you'll not be needing any docstring for making a addition function, but I'm just simply giving an example here. Okay, so let's say I just make a function that is def addition. Okay, and like this. Fine. Come on to the next line. So docstrings are always declared as soon as you just define your function and come inside the function. So whenever you just want to declare docstring, so you will just declare docstring here. So let's say these are the 3 semicolons which I write. So if inside this I would write that this function performs addition. Okay, this function performs, let's say, addition. Okay, and I would simply, okay, let me just go here like this. And I would just simply close this docstring like this. Okay, this function performs addition. And now inside this, basically, I'd be just, let's say, C is equal to A plus B. And I would be simply printing the C, right? And okay, here above in the bracket, I just need to pass on the parameters that are A and B, right? Let me just take out that color once again. So A comma B like this, right? And simply I would come out of my function. Now just let me come out of my function. And I'll be just calling out my function that is addition, and let me just give some value, let's say 5 comma 6. So when you're just going to run this, you'll be getting the required output that is basically the addition of 5 and 6, right? This is true. But if you just want to access your docstring, so how we just do that access of docstring? So you need to write out the print statement first of all. Okay, inside the print statement, you need to write that for what function you are actually accessing the docstring. So for us, it is addition, right? The name for the function which we had made is addition. So I just wrote that addition here. I would put a dot here. Okay, after that underscore underscore doc underscore underscore and then the close. So whenever you just want to access the docstring, right? Whenever you just want to access the docstring, this is the way how you will be accessing that docstring, right? You will be first of all writing the name for the function. Firstly, print a statement. Okay, inside that print statement, name of the function which you are having and whichever docstring you want to access. Let's say it's addition right now. Okay, I just wrote that addition here. And after that, you need to put a dot here, underscore underscore doc underscore underscore, right? So basically this is about the docstrings in Python, and these are basically not the comments and they are the documentation strings. And this is how we just write the docstring, declare the docstrings, and this is how we just access out the docstring. Right, so I hope I just made this thing very clear to you regarding that docstrings. This is a very important topic in the Python programming. Make sure to revise this and make your concept very clear in this particular topic. Let's move to the third question for now. Okay, so my third question goes like how you can randomize the items of a list in place in Python. Okay, so let's say I am having a list in Python and I just want to randomize all of that like items in that list, right? Then how I will be doing that thing, right? So randomize here means that you need to like shuffle up all of the items. Let's say I have a list and in that list I have 5 items. Okay, let's say first item is let's say milk, and then I have this, let's say cold drink, I have let's say chips, I have chocolates, and let's say I have toffees, right? So let's say these are the 5 items which I am having inside the list. Now what I just need to do is that I just want to shuffle all of them, right? I just want to shuffle that like at the place of chocolates, chips should come, at the place of milk, cold drink should come, and all that things like this, right? So how will you be able to do that thing in the Python programming language, right? So this is a very interesting question that can come. So let's answer out this question. So I'll be explaining you this thing with the help of an example. Okay, I'll be explaining you. I'm just writing out the code in a OneNote. What you can just do is that you can just open your IDEs as well and like try out this code on some IDE as well. Okay, so on some compiler so that it is basically much clear to you. Right? Fine. Let me just write out the thing here. So actually we have a module which is random. Okay, random, we have one module, and from that we have basically one from random I'll be importing one function, let's say, and that is shuffle. SHUFFLE. Okay, so random is the module which we are having, and from that we are importing a function that is shuffle. So this shuffle is the function which is used to randomize all the items of your list. Okay, so first of all, we'll be import from like random. You will be importing out the shuffle function, right? Now, I'll be taking a variable. Let's say my variable is A. Okay, I'll be taking out a variable, and inside that, I'll be just writing out the basically some like I'll be making a list here. So my list is, let's say, I'll be writing my list as, let's say, A. I'll be simply giving some values here. Okay, A, B, C, comma D, comma E. You're not just gonna take A, B, C, D, and E in your interview, right? You're not just gonna do that thing. You're just going to take some meaningful things, meaningful values, meaningful variables here. Here I'm just giving you an example that how to answer out this question. So in that case, I'm just simply taking it, right? So A is equal to, let's say this is a list which I have declared. Now how to like understand it is a list? So I have taken the large brackets here. So whenever we just define any variables, any values, any data types inside the large bracket, so that is always treated as a list. So that I have done here. Now simply I'll be using out my function which I have imported above, and that is shuffle. SHUFFLE. Okay, let me just write that in a little bit bigger handwriting like this. Yes, it's like this. Okay, shuffle. So shuffle, and in the bracket I'd be writing out the variable which I want to shuffle. So that is A here, right? And simply I would be just printing out here, print and then A. So this is the procedure, this is the way how we just randomize the items of a list in place in Python. Okay, so I'm just randomizing the items of a list from one place to another. Let's say I just do not know that what the answer will be, because this is a random function. In random, anything can happen, right? Let's say A would be gone to the D place, B will be gone to the E place, D will come to, let's say, C place, and something will happen like this, because I'm not sure, because it is a random function. Random means anything can happen, right? Let's say you will be getting any output for the first time. Let's say you rerun your program. You'll be getting another output. You again rerun your program. You'll be getting the next different output at the third time, because of my random function, right? So this is basically how we just randomize the items of a list in Python, in place in Python. Okay, this is the procedure which we actually follow, right? Fine. So I hope by the time you have actually implemented this code onto your IDEs and just got out some like results and outputs, right? Let's move to the next question. And my next question goes here, that what is type conversion in Python? Now this is a very interesting question and even a very important question, that what is type conversion in Python? Okay, type conversion, we just name it as typecasting as well. Okay. Now, okay, let me start off with the definition as well. So I'll be writing here, just one second, right here. So type conversion. Okay, type conversion means conversion of one data type to another. Conversion of one data type to another. Okay. Now, another name for type conversion is typecasting as well. Listen to me very carefully. Whatever I'm just writing, note that down. But other than that, please listen to my words very carefully, because I'm telling most of the things verbally only, right? Important things I'm just telling verbally, and in written, I'm just telling you how to write out the answer for these questions, right? So basically, type conversion means the conversion of one data type to another. So the very first thing that you should make sure here is that another name for type conversion is typecasting. If typecasting comes or if type conversion comes, the definition for both of these remains the same. That is, it means conversion of one data type to another. Okay. Now, here I'll be listing out the functions that are helpful in conversion of one data type to another. But let's say Another question comes that basically what are the ways of type conversion, basically how you just do the type conversion. So there are two ways of type conversion, that is implicit type conversion and that is explicit type conversion, right? Implicit means that to like convert on convert each one data type into another automatically, and explicit type conversion means that converting one data type into another manually, right? We'll be discussing about this thing in further interview questions as well, but here I just gave you a brief about both of these things, right? Now here let's discuss about some functions which are actually helpful in the type conversion. Okay, so int, now the very first function goes here is int. Now what it does actually, it converts, I'll be writing here, converts any data type to integer type. Okay, to integer type. Okay, this is the use of this int function. Fine, it converts any data type to integer type. So similar to int, we have float as well. Okay, I'll be just writing here float. So I'll be writing it converts. I'll be writing it converts any data type. It converts any data type to float type. Float means that decimal, right? To float type. So these two are similar to each other, integer and float. Now after that, basically I have another one, that is ord, right? Now this is another function. Now what is it actually used for? So it is basically used for converting the character to integer. I have not again and again write convert, just understand that. So converting the character to integer. When you, let's say you are having a character, let's say ABC or something, and just want to convert it to the integer. So ORD is the like way, is a method where you just can use that out. Fine. Okay. Now other than this ORD, I have HEX. Now here comes the like the decimal and the binary values, the system, right? Number system. So hex, basically it converts integer to hexadecimal. I am just writing integer to hexadecimal. Why I am just listing all of these things here? Because if like some particular function comes from here and like interviewer asks you that basically what is the use of this function, then you can just list that thing, that okay, this hex is the function which is used to convert the integer to the hexadecimal, or float is basically it converts any data type into the float data type, and all those things you can just let that person know, right? That is why I'm just listing all of those functions here. So hexad is basically converting the integer to hexadecimal. Similar, we have oct as well. So it converts integer to octal. So I would just write here integer to octal. So basically these are the number system functions which are actually helpful for converting one into another. Okay. Other than that, I have another function which is tuple. Now what is this tuple actually used for? So basically this function is used to convert to a tuple. Whenever you just want to convert any other data type to a tuple, then in that case this function is used. So I'm just writing that used to convert to a tuple. Okay, this is the place where this is used actually. It is used to convert to a tuple. Now this is done. Other than that, I have a function that is set. Okay, now what is the set is used to? So this is a function that returns the type after converting to a set. Okay, it will be returning the type. Let me write that thing here. Returns the type after. Returns the type after. Okay, returns the type after. I'll be just writing here converting. Returns the type after converting to set. Right, this is the whole idea, that it returns the type after converting to set. It is done. Right, now other than this I have a list, right? So basically list is a function which is used to convert any data type into list. So any data type to list, right? Any data type to list. Now dictionary is basically dict. Dict is another function which we have. So this function is actually used to convert a tuple of order into a dictionary. Okay, it is basically used to convert a tuple of order key dot value. If a tuple is having this order, that is key dot value, then only it converts it to tuple of order into our dictionary. Okay, like this. Fine. Now other than this I have another one, that is str. So it is basically used to convert the integer to a string. Okay, integer to str, that is string. I will just write that like this. Okay, it is basically used for converting the integer to a string, right? And now basically I have my last one. So let me just come a little down right here, and now I have my another function that is complex, and in bracket we have two parameters that are real comma imaginary, imag, right? So this basically converts the real to complex number. Okay, it converts the real number to complex, right? So basically these are the functions which we have here in the type conversion. So if any question comes regarding any of these functions, so you will be able to answer, right? The very first thing about the type conversion is that type conversion means the conversion of one data type to another. Then integer, float, ord, hex, and then oct, tuple, set, list, dictionary, str, and complex. These are all the functions which comes, right? Now let me just take this question to this place, and let's answer out this last question, that is, what are the key features in Python? Most interesting question of the Python programming language, that what are the key features of Python, right? That what are the key features in Python? Let's start. The very first key feature in the Python is that it is an interpreted language. So basically Python is an interpreted language, right? It means, what does that actually interpreted language means? It means that it is a type of language in which we do not need to compile and basically compile the things. Simply we just like write it and we can simply run it. So in C and C++, basically what happens is that before running out the program, we firstly need to compile it, right? In compilation it shows that do you have any errors, something like that. But in Python it does not happen, because it is an interpreted language. It is not a compiled language. Okay, it is an interpreted language. Interpreted language means that in this particular language you do not need to compile your code before running it. Simply you need to run your program. If any errors are there, it will be listed. If not, then your desired output will come. Right, so I'm just writing in short and explaining in a brief. So just listen to me very carefully. The very first key feature is that Python is an interpreted language. Okay. Second thing comes that it is a dynamically typed language. Okay, just let me write that. Dynamically typed, like this. Fine. So basically Python is a dynamically typed language. So basically it means that before declaring any variable, you do not need to mention that what is the data type for this particular language. Let's say we do it in C or C++. What we do, we write integer a is equal to 10. We just write character str is equal to some string in that, right? We just do it like this. But in Python, you do not need to do that thing, because it is a dynamically typed language. That is, you simply need to write out the variable and give the value to that. Other than that, you do not need to mention any particular data type or something like that while declaring the functions in the while declaring and making out the variables in Python programming language, right? Now, third function comes that Python is a well suited for object-oriented programming. Okay, basically it is a object-oriented programming language. Okay, so I'll just write that well suited to, I would write object-oriented programming. That is oops like this. I will just not write the whole thing. Okay, so basically Python is a well suited to object-oriented programming. In that case, basically it allows the definition of classes along with the composition and inheritance. So basically in this you can just write out you can define the classes, you can define the composition, you can do the inheritance, and all those things you can do. And basically you can simply do that, simply you can just write out the things whatever you have to. So basically it does not need any particular access specifiers to be written. Let's say in C or C++, what we do, if we just want to make a private or public something, we just write that private, then we just write that public. So in this Python programming language, you do not need to do this thing. So basically you do not have to use the access specifiers in the Python programming language. So that is the case that it is well suited for object oriented programming as well. right? Other than this, basically we have that it is like in Python the code is quick, right? Because basically it allows us to write out the code in a very shorter manner, so in that case it is like quick. But basically at some times the running is often slower, but the numpy library which we have in the Python programming language, that makes it like in numpy you can just like put many large values, and in that case what is the mathematical calculations you are getting from that, it will basically give you all of the things in a very quick manner, right? So I'll be writing here the very fourth thing, that is writing Python code. I'll be writing Python code is quick. Okay, so basically writing out the Python codes is quick here. Okay, so these are basically some like key features of Python programming language which you can write out here. Okay, and basically simply you can just like use them. Other than that, we just also have one more function, that is in Python, functions are first class object. That is, you can pass any variable to a function, you can pass a function to a function, you can call a function, and all those things you can just perform. Okay, so the last key feature which I would include here is that functions are functions, okay, just let me write that are clearly here. Okay, functions are first class objects, right? First class objects. So this means that you can just define any variable with a function, and you can just call a function with a function, you can declare a function inside a function, and all those things you can just do in this Python programming language. So these are some key features about Python which you can just list them, right? So I hope that I made all of these 5 questions clear to you, explained to them in a like fine way. That very first question we have taken was what are Python packages. Then we had seen about the docstrings. Then we had moved to that how you can randomize the items of a list in place. So, okay, let me quickly take one color, and then I would be start writing out the things here. And let's say I would be taking the color. Let me took out the something from here. Okay, let me take out this one right here. Fine. Okay, why it is actually taking the highlighter. Let me just take out the pen from here. Okay, fine. Let's get started. Now, basically, my very first question that we are gonna discuss today is that how files can be deleted in Python. Okay, this is the very first question that we are going to discuss today, right? That basically how files can be deleted in Python. Okay, now basically for this, basically actually we need to import some module, and after that we just need to use some function from that module for deleting some file in Python, right? Let me let you know the way that how we can just like do this thing in Python programming language. Fine, so I'll be writing here that so to delete, okay, so to delete a file in Python, a file in Python. Okay, if you just want to delete a file in Python, so then in that case what you need to do is that, okay, right here, so you okay you need to import the module which I was just talking about, is that you need to import the OS module, that is basically the operating system. Stands for operating system. So you just need to import out this module here. The very first thing that you need to do. After this, it is not at all here that simply from importing the OS module the file would be deleted. No, after this basically you need to use one function from this OS module, and that is basically os.remove. Okay, and after this remove, put out the brackets as well. So after this you need to use the us.os.remove function, and after that it will be completed. Okay, function like this. So first of all, this is the procedure that you will be using for like deleting out the files in Python. Okay, that the very first thing you will be doing is that you will be deleting a file in Python, so you need to import the OS module. Okay, and after this basically you need to use the os.remove. Okay, this is the thing that you will be doing here, os.remove function. So now let's write out the program and let's see that basically how these things actually work, right? So first of all, let me just write out the code here. That the very first thing that you need to do is that you need to import the OS. OS will be in small, okay, not in capital. Make sure to remember that thing, right? Import OS. Now, after that, basically what you need to do is that simply you need to write os dot remove. Okay, os dot remove, into the bracket you need to write, let's say, any file name. Let's say that is file. Okay, file dot, and you need to put the extension that is .txt and then close it like this. So this is very simple, right? You just simply need to import the OS module, and after that you need to just write os dot remove. So this is the way how files can be deleted in Python. Now here actually files is being referred, so that files are indirectly referring to the text file, because in Python programming language we deal with the text files, right? In that case basically we have the file handling topic, in that we just deal out with the text files. So this is the way how the questions can be asked. It will not properly refer to you that you are asking text files or something like that, but we need to just consider that, because in Python programming the text files are actually dealt with, right? So how can you how can files be deleted in Python? So in Python you need to, if you want to delete a file, in that you first need to import the OS module, and after that from that OS module you need to take a function that is remove, and simply you need to write in the bracket that which file you want to remove, and your file would be removed from that particular place. Right, so this is the way that how we just remove any file using the OS module in Python programming language. This delete a file. Okay, very first question is finished. Move on to the second question. Now my second question, just 1 minute, let me just go here and take this one. Fine. Now my second question says to me that what is the purpose of is not and in operators. So basically these are the three types of operators which we have, and okay, let's see that what is the purpose of all of these three operators. So first of all, if if any question is asked, so in that case first of all you'll be telling that what are actually operators. Okay, you will not simply start that is not and in. You will simply first of all answer that what we just meant from operators. Okay, so I will be writing that thing here, that operators are special function. Not you need not to give too much of explanation and all those things in operators. Your main question which is asked to you is that what is the purpose of is not an in operator. So in that case simply you need to give one line for the operators, that operators are special functions. The very first thing that you need to do is that. Okay, after that you need to tell that what actually operators do. Okay, what actually operators do, you need to tell out this thing. So I'll be writing that they take one or more values and produces a result, a corresponding result. Okay, let's just write here result. So this is the use of the operators. Right now basically we are going to talk about the purpose of is not an in operator. So you need to start out your question like this, answer for this question like this. You need not to stuck at the topic which is operators only, but you need to give out a very simple definition that what is operators. So you can just write that operators are special functions. What they do, they take one or more values and produces a result for that particular values, right? Now let's talk about the is operator for the very first. Now what's the use of this is operator? Let's talk about that thing. So is operator actually it returns true. It returns true when two, okay, just let me come down. It returns true when two operands are true. Now this seems a little bit of confusing type, something like that, right? Let me just write an example as well here. So let's say b is b, right? This is the example. So basically the use of is that it returns true when two operands are true. In that case, let's say I have a variable that is b, and in that variable I have stored some value or something like that, and when I just use out this is operator, so if in that variable and the value which I have written in my print statement with the help of the is operator, if both of those things are actually matching with each other, if in the both of them the variable or the value, the string, whatever you have just written, is that like same with each other, then basically it returns as the true. So this is the thing that I have written here in a very short way, that returns true when two operands are true. When the two operands are true, basically the is operator returns as true, and the example for this is b is b. Right, so I hope that you have got an idea regarding that what is the is operator. Right, now let's move out to the second one, and that is my not operator. Now let's see that basically what this not operator actually does. So basically what does it actually returns? It returns the inverse it returns the inverse of the boolean value So the use of the not operator is that it basically returns as the inverse of the boolean values. Okay, let's say you are having some boolean values that are true and false, let's say. So it will basically give you the inverse of true and inverse of false. Okay, so this is the use of this not operator which we have here. Right, now let's move on to another one more thing, and that is my third operator, and that is basically in. Right, in and is are actually a little bit of similar to each other. When you're just going to use this in simple operator, then it is a little bit same. Other than that, this in is especially used in the loops, that is the for loop. It is especially used in that case. Okay, so I will just write that thing here, that checks, I would write that checks if some element is present in some sequence. Okay, so it checks if some element is present in some sequence. Now, as I mentioned, that it is especially used in the for loops, right? So in the for loops, basically what it does, whenever we just use out the for loop, so in that case, basically in that for loop itself, it checks out that whether these elements, like whether the variable which you are entering inside that, what elements are present, and it like helps us to execute all of those things. So this is the main use of the in function, that checks if some element is present in some sequence, right? So these are the three operators which we have discussed about, that is not and in, right? Now let's move to another question for R. Let me just come down here. So okay, let me just take out this question above as well, because it's leaving a lot of space. Let me take out the question above. Okay, right here. What are Python iterators? The very simple question, right? That what are Python iterators? So iterators actually refer to the like incrementing of the things and again using of that particular loop. This is what iterators are actually, right? Now, basically, if it comes on to definition, if you just want to give the definition of this particular thing, then how you are just gonna do that? So in that case, iterators are objects. Iterators are objects which can be traversed. Traversed means basically used. Okay, basically which can be traversed through, traversed though, or iterated upon, or iterated like right here, or iterated like this and upon. Right, so this is actually what are Python iterators. So Python iterators are the objects which can be traversed though or iterated upon. Now let's say basically you are writing a for loop, you had just put on a for loop, and in that case basically you had just put on a variable, you had just put on the condition, and in that case basically you have just given some value. Let's say you want all the numbers to be displayed from 1 till 10. Okay, you have just given a starting point, that is 1, until 10. You just want all of the numbers to be get displayed. So in that case, basically what we just do, we apply a concept that is called iteration actually. And that iteration is basically done with the help of the iterators. Right? So iterators are objects which can be traversed through, traversed though, or iterated upon. Right? This is the definition for which you can just give on the Python iterators. Right? Let's come on to the next question. So come down. Okay, I'm so sorry, right here, and let me just again come upside, right here. So my next question goes on that how to install Python on Windows and set path variable. Right now my question is that how we can install the Python on Windows, and if we just want to set a particular path variable, then how we can do that. So the very first step that goes is that you just need to go onto the official website of the Python, that is www.python.org, and from there you can just download the Python onto your device. So I would just write here the very first step is that install Python from website. Okay, this is the thing that you can just install, and after that, and after you have installed. Okay, so after installation, you just need to look on for a particular location. That way, you just need to like install and save your Python which you have installed, and just basically you just need to like save it onto that particular path where you just want to do that. Right, after that, basically now you just want to check that at what particular path you have saved out your Python. So what you can just do is that you can just go to your command prompt. You know that command prompt, right? So you can just go to that command prompt and write that write one basically command, that is cmd python. So it will basically give you the path where your Python is actually saved, where you have actually installed your Python. At that particular path it will give you. So just write cmd python. Right now, the very third step that comes is that just copy out that path which you have just found out on that cmd python, right? Just copy out that whole path. Now after this you need to go to the advanced system settings. Now after that, go to the advanced system settings, right? Go to this particular place, and basically in that case add a new variable, then add a new variable, and basically you can just give it as any name, and I would just write and name it. Okay, and name it whatever just name you want to name, and name it, and paste the copied path onto that name. Okay, and paste the copied path. Okay, this is the procedure which you'll be following. The third, okay, I'm so sorry, just let me do Control plus Z like this, right? So go to the advanced settings, and after that add a new variable and name it, and paste the copied path whichever you are just copied right now. Okay, after that the next step that comes is that look for the path variable. Okay, look for the path variable. Okay, look for the path variable actually which you had made right now. Okay, that the variable in which you have saved your copied path, that is a path variable. So look for the path variable, select its value. After that select its value. Okay, select its value whatever you are whatever it is having, and then select the edit option. Okay, and then the edit option, and after that basically the fifth step goes like that. Come on to the next way, and after that add a semicolon. That after that add a semicolon towards the end. Okay, towards the end of the value, towards the end of the value, and basically and if it is not present, and then if basically add a semicolon towards the end of the value. Okay, then do that. And if it is not present, then what to do? If it is not present, then type, okay, just let me write that if it is not present as well, otherwise you'll be confused. And if it is not, come to the next line. If it is not present, then type %python underscore basically home, and then again the % sign. Then type this thing. Okay, and your whole answer is completed for this question. That is basically how to install Python on Windows and set path variable. Okay, this is how we do. Let me just quickly give a revision. That first of all you need to install Python from the website. After that you need to open your command prompt, and you need to just write the cmd python. It will basically give you a path that where you have saved your Python. Just copy out that path. Okay, after that go to the advanced system settings, and in that case basically add a new variable. Click on add a new variable and name it, and give any name to that particular variable. We give any name for that, and basically simply paste the copied path which you have copied from the command prompt. Okay, which you have copied from the command prompt, just paste that to or that particular position. After that look for the path variable. Okay, select its value, basically the value whichever you are having, just select it, and after that just click on the edit. Now after that basically add a semicolon towards the end of the value, and if it is not present type, basically the type is not present, then you need to type that %python underscore home and then %. This is what you need to do here, right? So this is the procedure which you will be following for basically for installing Python and setting a path variable for that, right? So here comes my last question for this video, that basically what type of language is Python, programming or scripting? So this is a very frequently asked question. So which type of language is Python? Is programming or scripting? So Python, okay, let's answer this thing, that Python is capable of scripting. We can just do scripting with the help of Python, right? I would just come down, hold on. So I would just write here that Python is capable of scripting. Python is capable of scripting, but condition comes here. But in general sense, it is considered DERED. Python is capable of scripting, but in general sense, it is considered as a general purpose programming language. I would just write that, a general purpose programming language. So this type of answer you can just give to this question, that basically is Python a scripting language or Python is a programming language. So you can just say that Python is capable of scripting. We can just do the scripting with Python, but in general sense, it is basically considered as a general purpose programming language. Right. So basically, I hope that you have got all of these 5 questions actually, which we have discussed today. The very first question was that how files can be deleted in Python. So we had seen the procedure for deleting out the files in Python, right? Second goes that what is the purpose of is not and in operators. Then third goes that what are Python iterators. Fourth was how to install Python on Windows and set path variable. And the fifth one was that what type of language in Python is Python, programming or scripting. So we have answered all of these 5 questions in a very detail today, and I hope that you have got the answer for all of these questions in a very proper way. And even we had discussed about all of these things a little bit in a deeper way, right? So the question here is that what are the built-in types of Python? So many of you must be saying that, okay, what is actually meant from built-in types? I haven't heard this till now, and basically I haven't studied this in Python and some things like that. But if you just understand the word that's built-in types very carefully, so you'll be getting to know that here it is actually asking you that what are the built-in data types of Python. Not types of Python, what actually we can just say from here, right? So types means that what are the kind of data which we can give, right? This is only what just basically come under the built-in types. So in that case, Python is having a concept which is of the data types, right? So in that case, now we just need to define out that what are the built-in data types of Python, right? So this is the meaning of that particular question. So it's not given very directly that what is the data types in Python, but it is basically asking in a very indirect way that what are the built-in types of Python. So you just need to be very careful about this thing, that it will not ask you the things in a very direct way, okay? It will not basically give you that tell me the data types of Python. That will be a very simple question, right? But this is a little bit of tricky type question, right? So let's begin now with the answer here. And answer for this question, let's write out that and see how to give out the answer for this question. So I'll be starting up from that particular sentence only which is in the question, okay? So that is built-in types in Python are as follows. Okay, so I'm just writing out all of the built-in data types in Python, right? So number 1 is basically my integers. We know that integers is the one which is a built-in data type. Other than that, we have float numbers. So for that, giving the answer in a more good way, you can just write that floating point, okay? Simply just do not write that float numbers. If you just want to give your answer in a very better way, in a very good way, so you can just name that as floating point, okay? Moving towards the third number, we have basically complex numbers. Okay, so complex, I'll just write here complex and then the numbers, write this. Then moving towards the fourth, we have the strings. And then moving towards the fifth, we have the Boolean values. Boolean values actually refer to my true and false, right? And moving at the last one, we have built-in functions. So that is built-in, and simply I'm just writing a short form of functions, right? So these are the built-in types of Python which we actually have. So built-in means that basically which are already there, right? We just do not need to define them or give a particular syntax for writing those things. These are already declared in Python. Python actually already have these things, right? We just need to use out these. Now built-in functions basically mean that these are the functions which are already defined by the Python. The code for these functions are already written, right? What we just need to do is that simply call the function, give out the values, and the function has been performed whatever we were just basically trying to do. right? This is actually what is built-in function. We have basically functions of two types, that is built-in and the user defined. So here actually the built-in types are actually are, so in that case we'll be only and only listing about the built-in function. It means that the functions which are already there, we do not need to define the functions, we simply need to call out that built-in functions, and our work is done, basically whatever we are just wishing to do, right? And other than that, we have data types that are built in here, and that are basically integers, float, complex number, strings, and the booleans, right? These are the built-in data types also which we have here, right? So this is about the answer of this question, that what are the built-in types of Python programming language, right? I hope just you got the idea that how to answer out this question. Right, now let's move on to the next question for now, and just let me go down so that I can just like look at the next question. Fine. Now my next question says that you need to write out that what is the usage of help and dir functions in Python. Okay, so basically these are two functions in Python which is actually help and dir. Now the question asks us that basically let me know that what is the usage of both of these functions, right? So let's start answering out these questions, and let's see that basically what's the use of help and dir functions. So I would just write here the first of all the name for the help, and other than that the dir. Just let me write that thing here. So here it goes, help and dir. Please make sure that do not like if it basically comes in the written down, that basically you need to write out the answer for this question. So please make sure to put the brackets and look out these very small things which are actually here. Okay, these look like that they are very small, but they are actually very important, because after functions it's always a rule, even not in only Python, in any other language also it's a rule that you need to put out the brackets. So just do not forget out that things here. Okay, so help and dir are both functions, and basically they are accessible, are both functions, comma, they are accessible. So I would just write the spelling for accessible here. Okay, they are accessible from the Python interpreter. Okay, so first of all you need to understand that basically these two functions are accessible with from the Python interpreter. Fine, the very first thing that you need to have the lookup. So in this form, another question can occur, that let me know two functions that are accessible for the Python interpreter. So in that case you can just give out these two very exact answers, that is help and dir functions. Okay, so accessible from the Python interpreter and used for, and basically what is the use of this? Okay, and I will just write that the used for viewing. So viewing. Okay, so in that case I was just writing here consolidated. Okay, so I'm just like writing a common thing between both of these functions which we have. After that we'll be differentiating also that what is the main use of help and main use of dir. Here I'm just telling you a common use of both of these. Okay, I'm just summarizing that thing in the very starting, right? And used for viewing consolidated dump built-in functions. Dump built-in functions. Built-in functions, you know, right? You just right now talking about these functions in a little while, right? We just talked about this in the above question. Now let's directly understand that's what's the use of the help and the dir function. So help comes here for the first one. Okay, now I'd be letting you know that this help function is actually used to display, it is used to display the documentation string, documentation string. It is used for displaying out the documentation string, and also facilitates you to see the help related to modules, comma, keywords, help related to modules, keywords, attributes, etc. Okay, I'm just writing that etc here. Right, now let me just define that what is the help function actually used for. So the very first and even the main use of the help function is actually that it helps us to display the documentation strings. Okay, and even it helps us to see the documentation, the write up that actually what does function do, what does module do, what this actually keyword does, and all that things we are able to see with the help function. Now let me give you a clear idea for this. Let's say we have a numpy library in Python programming language, right? We have this library. So It is basically used in that numpy library. So whenever we just use that numpy library, let's say we are using any function from that. So what we do, we very first of all, we just write help. Okay, and then in the bracket, we just write out that basically help, and after that, we just write out the function name, that what we're just gonna use. So as soon as we just run out the program, so that basically results as the whole documentation of that particular function which we have written. It tells us that what that function do, it tells us the syntax, it tells us that what are the parameters, it tells us that what parameters values you can give, it tells us that what it returns, even it will tell you some similar functions like that, and even it will basically give you some examples as well. Okay, so all of these things are possible only and only with the use of this help function, right? So this help function is used to display the documentation string and also facilitates you to see the help related to modules, keywords, attributes, and etc. Right? So this is a very important use of this help function. Right? Let's move on to the next function, and that is basically the dir. Right? Let me write that second here, and the dir function. Now let's see that what is this used for. So the dir function is used, it is used to display the defined symbols, So whenever you just want to see and basically display the defined symbols, so in that case basically this dir is the function which is actually used, right? So the dir function is used for displaying the defined symbols, right? So basically this is the use of both of these functions. The first one was the help and the second one is the dir. So help is basically used to see the and display the documentation string, and dir is used to display the defined symbols, right? I hope that you had got an idea that what are these actually used for, right? Okay, so here goes our third question for now, and that is basically, right, now my question here is that how you can generate random numbers in Python. Random numbers, a very interesting and even very important topic, right? So this random is one of the module which is used in many of the programs, and it's basically this module is very helpful, right? It is basically used as for generating some random values. It is used for generating some random numbers, and all those things are performed by this function only, right? Let's see in detail that how you can just answer this question, that how can you generate random numbers in Python. So as I mentioned that it is used for generating random numbers, so I'm just not writing that. So if you just want to use out this module, so the very first thing that you do is that you write import, and after that you write out the random. This is how you just import the random module. Okay, now after that you just need to write random dot random. Now what does this actually random dot random means, which I have just written here, right? Now we'll be understanding the meaning and the use of this random dot random. So basically this random dot random, let me put out the bracket right here. So basically it is a method for returning the floating point numbers. Okay, this random dot random, it is a method for returning the floating point numbers. Let me just write it here that it is a method for returning the floating point numbers. Okay, it is a method for returning the floating point numbers, and basically it also have a range, comma, and I will just write here the comma range is and large bracket 0, comma 1, and then this small bracket like this. Okay, so basically it is a method for returning the floating point numbers, and range is this much. Okay, now this function generates the random float numbers, right? So this is actually used for generating the random float numbers, right? Now, and these all are the functions which are defined under the random class. Okay, now let's see some another functions of the random module as well. So let me just firstly write out the first function, that is range, and as from the word name only you can just understand that what is this actually used for range. So basically it chooses an integer and defines the range that between this much of range you just want some random integer value. Okay, this is the use of this range function. Okay, Let me write out that thing here so it is more clear to you. So I'll be writing that it chooses an integer. It chooses an integer, integer, and define the range and define the range between a comma b. As I mentioned that a comma b will be the range. Okay, and what does it returns? So it basically returns the elements. It returns the elements by selecting it randomly from the range specified. Okay, it returns the elements by selecting it randomly from the, I would just come down from the, and I would, okay, from the, and right here it is range. Okay, from the range, right? So this is actually what is the use of this rand range function a comma b. Fine, let's take out the second one, and that is basically here, which is uniform. Okay, uniform a comma b. Okay, what is the use of this function? So it actually also chooses a floating point number, and that is basically defined in a range, and that range is basically a comma b. So it will basically return me the floating point values. Okay, so I'm just not writing that thing here. Let me just again repeat it, that what it does actually. So it basically choose a floating point number between the defined range which you are having, and it returns you a floating point number. Okay. Now, next basically what do I have here? So after that, basically these are some like random functions which you can just list out and which you can just use out, right? So what was our question? Actually, so our question was that, let me just see that how you can generate random numbers in Python. Okay, so these are the two methods with which you can just generate out a random method. Let me just list out some one or two more methods. Okay. Okay. So third one is basically it is normal and normal variate, variate, and in the bracket it is mean comma standard deviation. Okay, it basically like a part type of a little bit statistical and all those things it actually applies. Okay, basically now what it is used for, so this function is actually used for the normal distribution. Okay, it is basically used for the normal distribution, right? And basically where mean you know and standard deviation you know, and that is basically used for the standard deviation, right? It is used for finding out the normal distribution. So I would just write used for normal, and then here distribution, like this only. Okay, another one in the random one. Okay, moving towards the fourth, so basically the random class is basically it is used and it creates the multiple random number generators, right? This is about the random class which we've already discussed, right? So these are some functions which you can use for finding out some random numbers and all those things, right? So I hope that you are very much clear with this answer. Fine, let's come on to the next question and let's see another one here. So my next question goes here, that is indentation required in Python? Yes, very important and very main question, that is indentation required in Python. Now, basically what will be the answer for this question, that yes, indentation is actually required in Python, right? Now, why it is actually required, so that you all basically actually know that why it is actually required. So, you have studied about the for loops, you have studied about the while, you have studied about the if else if condition, you have studied about the functions, you have studied about all of these topics, right? So in that, basically what's the main thing that plays a role? That is indentation, right? Basically giving some tab spaces, giving a particular tab space, making the proper indentation, right? Let me write out the answer as well, that will be more clear. So I'll be writing yes, indentation is necessary in Python. That yes, indentation is necessary in Python, right? Now basically other than this, I'll be just letting you know. So basically what we just meant from indentation, first of all define that thing. So it specifies a block of code. Okay, this is the definition, that what is indentation. So for that you can just give out this answer, that it specifies a block of code. Okay, now all the codes which are written in the classes, functions, while loops, for loops, if else condition, all of these are basically they all use the indentation, that is indent block, right? So basically in indentation we usually give 4 tab spaces. 4 tab spaces is the like you can just call it as the used one. Okay, that 4 tab spaces are actually used in the indentation, right? And basically if your code is not indented properly, so in that case it will not execute properly and it will throw you the error. Let's say you have just missed some indentation, or basically you have not written the proper indentation, or you have not written the proper statements in the indentation. If you have not done any of these things, then your program will surely result you the error. Okay, so this is the whole idea for the indentation, and yes, indentation is very important and very necessary in the Python programming language, right? Let's move on to the next question for now. And now my last question for today is that how is Python an interpreted language? Okay, but how is Python an interpreted language? So let's see that question for now. So let me just write out that thing here, that an interpreted language, what do we just firstly mean from the interpreted language? So an interpreted language is any programming language, it is any programming language which is not in machine level code, before runtime. Okay, before runtime. So an interpreted language is an programming language which is not in machine level code before runtime, right? Therefore, okay, so I can just write here that therefore Python is, let me just come down, therefore Python is an interpreted language, okay? So this is the answer for this particular question. Let me just go above and once again explain you the answer for this question. So basically, how we can just say that Python is an interpreted language. So in that case, first of all, you need to explain that what actually you just meant from interpreted language. So it is a programming language which is not in machine level code before runtime. Okay, so basically this is the answer for the interpreted language. And after that, yes, Python is an interpreted language. Fine. So basically these were the 5 questions that we have discussed today. So the first question was that what are the built-in types of Python? Okay. Second question was that what is the usage of help and dir function in Python. Third was basically how can you generate random numbers in Python. Then it was, is indentation required in Python? And the fifth one was that how is Python an interpreted language, right? So these are what advantages do NumPy arrays offer over Python list. Now, basically when we just talk about Pythons, in that cases numpys are also one of the libraries which are actually mostly used, right? We just talk about numpys libraries a very lot. Now in that case, basically we are going to see that what are the advantages of numpy over list, right? Over Python list. What is the basically reason, what is the advantage that why we just always prefer using the NumPy arrays over list. Right, we are just going to see this answer today. Now, please listen to me very carefully because this is a very asked question which is generally asked a lot in the interviews, because arrays and list, they both are actually a little bit of same to each other, right? They both are actually a little bit of equal to each other. There are some minor differences which makes arrays and lists different from each other, right? Let's begin up with the things for here and let's start. So the advantages to NumPy arrays offer over Python list. So let's start up here. So I would be just writing out the answer and let's write out and understand. So I'd be adding here that Python's lists are efficient. Python lists are efficient. General purpose containers are efficient. General purpose containers. Okay, these are the efficient general purpose containers, right? So this is about the list. Now, basically what they actually do. So basically after this they support the efficient insertion, deletion, appending, and all those things are actually supported by the Python list, right? We can just append on that, we can just remove any element, we can just perform the insertion, we can perform the deletion. All of these basically are performed on the Python list, right? So these are the things which you can just perform on the list as well, right? And the Python lists are actually comprehensions, right? They make them easy to basically construct and to manipulate, right? These are the differences. This is the very first thing about the Python list, okay? So my question is that what advantages do NumPy arrays offer over Python list? Okay, so first of all, this is my about my Python list. Now, other than this, if I just discuss about my numpy arrays, okay, if I just discuss about my numpy arrays, so basically there is certain conditions, there are certain limitations that we cannot perform the vector functions on the list. We cannot do, right? But we can do that on the numpy arrays. Okay, vector operations cannot be performed on that, right? Let's say we just cannot do the element wise multiplication, we cannot do the element wise addition. All of these things cannot be performed on the list, but they can be performed on the numpy arrays, right? And basically the fact is that they actually contain the different types of list contains the different types of data types as well, right? But in numpy arrays do not contain different types of elements, they different types of data types. They just basically contain only and only the numbers, right? So I hope that you have got an idea regarding the difference, right? So I've just not written that because if I just gonna write that will take a lot of time, and even that would be a little boring for you as well. So I would just let you know about the advantages of that NumPy arrays offer over Python list. Now I'll be letting you know the very important thing. So in that case, I'll be writing here that NumPy is not just okay. Let me write that thing in a clear handwriting so that you are actually able to understand that afterwards as well. So NumPy is not just more efficient, and I would just like talking about the efficiency, right? So I would just write that NumPy is not just more efficient, efficient, but it is also convenient to use, but also convenient. Let me write that convenient, right? It is not only efficient, but it is also convenient. Basically we just get a lot of vector, a lot of matrix of operations which we can just perform on the numpy arrays, right? And that is absolutely for free, right? We can just perform any vector, any matrix operations for free, and we can just like deal with the very large numbers as well, basically, which take a lot of time. By using the pen and paper, basically it takes a lot of time to find out that things, find out that values and all those things. But with the help of that numpy, it is the things are very easy. Just write out the thing, just use that function, and simply you'll be getting your exact answer, right? So this is basically means that numpy is not just more efficient, but also convenient as well, right? So, and even that numpy is faster because we just get a lot of built-in functions in the numpy arrays. Okay, numpy arrays is faster, and you basically get a lot of built-in functions in the numpy arrays, right? So basically these are some advantages of numpy arrays over Python list, right? I hope that you have listened to me very carefully, because I have not written these things here because there's no meaning of writing that thing. I'm just telling you, I'm just briefing you, and I'm just detailing you about the things, right? So Python lists are efficient general purpose containers, right? NumPy is not just more efficient but also convenient to use. Basically lists do not support the vectors and the matrices, but numpy array does. Basically numpy arrays is faster because we just get many lot of built-in functions in the numpy arrays. Numpy arrays is more efficient but also convenient because it offers us many functions for the matrix, for the vectors, that it actually help us to save our time, that actually help us to save our unnecessary work, right? So these are some advantages that NumPy arrays offer over Python list, right? I hope that you have got a clear idea regarding this question, that what are the advantages NumPy arrays offer over Python list, right? Let's come on to the next question for now. So my second question for today is that basically whenever Python exits, okay, whenever Python exits, why is not all the memory deallocated? Okay, which now this is a very interesting and a very conceptual question as well. That whenever this Python exits, right, whenever we just close out the Python, then basically why all the memory which we have that does not get deallocated, right? This is the question that is actually asked. So for this, basically, I'll be giving out you the proper write-up as well for this question. Okay, so I would just start writing that whenever, I would just write down the question with this way, that whenever the Python exits, okay, whenever Python exits, especially whenever Python exits, especially those Python modules which are having like especially those Python modules which are which are which are having circular references, which are having circular references to other objects too, which are basically having circular references to other objects, and basically they are referenced, they are referenced, referenced. Let me just get out some space here so that I can just write out. Okay, so they are referenced from the global namespace, the global from the global namespace, are are not always deallocated, right? So basically, whenever Python exits, especially those Python modules which are having circular references to other objects, they are referenced from the global namespace, and that is the reason that they do not get deallocated, right? Now, basically, the answer for the question is that whenever the Python exits, right, especially when we just use any Python modules which are having several references to the other objects as well, so they are referenced from the global namespace, okay, and that is why, because the memory does not get deallocated always, right? This is the very first reason for the answer of this question. Uh, second, second, right now, second thing comes that basically on exit, because of having because of having, okay, just let me write that thing like this here. Okay, on exit, because of having own efficient clean up mechanism, right? So basically on exit, because of having own efficient cleanup mechanism, so Python Python would try to deallocate. Okay, I'm sorry, let me just come down first of all. Python would try to the Python would try to deallocate slash destroy every other other object. So this is the reason that why does this actually try to deallocate the memory, and basically, so on exit, because of having own efficient cleanup mechanism, Python would try to deallocate slash destroy every other object. But so my question was that why is not all the memory deallocated? So this is the reason that first of all, why it actually tried to deallocate the memory, because of having its own efficient cleanup mechanism. Python would try to deallocate slash destroy every other object whatever it will be having, right? So this is the answer. Other than that, basically there comes one more very important reason, and that is, okay, let me just give some space and then write because it's like a mess up. Okay, I would just write it is impossible to deallocate. It is impossible to deallocate those those portions. It is impossible to deallocate those portions of memory that are that are reserved by the C library. Okay, this is the another very important reason which you can just list on, that it is basically impossible to deallocate those portions of the memory that are reserved by the C library, right? So this is the answer for all of these these three are the answers for this question which is coming here, that whenever Python exits, why is not all the memory deallocated? So these are the three reasons regarding reasons regarding this question. Right, now let's move on to the other question here. And now here comes about my third question, that basically what is the difference between the range and an xrange, right? So this is the another question which is coming, that let me know the difference between the range and the xrange. Okay, so let's come here. Fine. So basically for most of the parts, this range and xrange actually work, and basically they just generate the static list and some like they basically are exactly the same, okay, for most of the cases. But they both, and basically what's the use of this? So they both actually provide and generate a list of integers for you to use, okay. So basically, first of all, the very most part is that xrange and range are the exact same in the terms of functionality. If we just talk about the functionality, okay, I would just write that they are same in functionality. So what do they actually do? So they would provide a way to generate the integers for you, okay. So basically they both they both provide a way to generate a list of integers, not only integers, a list of integers. So the very first thing is that basically what is the functionality that they actually perform. So these are actually same in the functionality. They both provide a way to generate a list of integers for us, right? The only difference is that the range function returns a Python object, Python list object, and the xrange returns an xrange object. Only this is the basic difference which comes between the range and the xrange. Let me write out that thing. So range, I'll be writing that range returns a Python range returns a Python list objects. Okay, this is the first thing that comes. The range returns. Range returns a Python list objects. Okay, and basically, comma. I would just add comma xrange, xrange, xrange returns an xrange object. This is the very basic difference which is basically between both of them. So basically the difference comes is that, let me just write up here. So the difference is that range actually returns a Python list object and xrange actually returns an xrange object. Okay, this is the difference which comes here, right? Let's move on to the next question for now. Okay, just 1 minute. I'm sorry, let me just write out like this. Right. Now my next question is that what is the difference between Python arrays and lists? So that question we had already seen right now, right? That what is the difference between the Python list and arrays? Let me just repeat that thing. I will just not write that here, okay? So basically the difference comes is that Python arrays actually they only store one single data type, that is the integers, okay, and list basically what they do, they basically store different data types as well. Let's say they can store integers, they can store float values, they can store characters, and all of these things can be stored one single variable only, right? But in Python arrays this is not the case. In Python arrays you can only and only give the integer values, right? This is the very basic difference that comes between the Python arrays and the list, right? So Python arrays hold only single data types, but list actually holds different data types onto it, right? Let's see an example. Okay, let's see an example here. So for that array I would need to write import array as arr. This thing we had already seen previously in the some part for this course as well. We are already seen this thing, right? So import array as arr. Let's say I just took out let's say a variable, that is my variable is, let's say own underscore. Okay, let me write that in a clear handwriting. That is arr, and let me just write that own underscore array like this. Let me just write it out here. Okay. So own underscore array. So in that basically I'll be storing arr dot, and that is capital. Okay, that is a would not be capital, a would remain as so small. Okay, this arr is my, what is it actually? So this arr is the short form which I have given to this array, and this array is actually my function. I will just write out like this, that let's say my variables are 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say these are the numbers which I have just stored, right? And I would just define my list as well. So I will just write own list. Okay. So for defining the list, and this is not put, this equal to is put, okay, own list is equal to, so large brackets, and here I can just write a, then 1, and then 10.2, then I can just write b. So you can just write any number of data types whichever you just want here, okay. And for printing, both the procedure is absolutely same. Inside the print statement you will be writing own underscore array, okay, and inside for the list we'll be writing print own underscore list, right? That is absolutely same. Only difference comes about the storing of the data types. That basically in arrays you can store only single data types, but in list you can just store any n number of data types whichever you just want, right? So I hope that you have got a clear and a fair idea that what is the basically that difference between the arrays and the Python list, right? Now let's move to the another question and let's see that what is PEP8, okay, PEP8. So let me write that PEP actually stands for Python. I would just write that another thing on the downside, okay, because the spelling is little long, okay. So Python enhancement proposal, and here it is proposal, right? So PEP stands for this thing. PEP stands for Python enhancement proposal, and what does it actually means? So it is basically it is a set of rules that specify, okay, it is a set of rules that specify let me come down, okay, it is a set of rules that specify how to format Python code for maximum readability. This is actually what this PEP stands for. So that is readability. Okay, readability right here. So it is basically this PEP. It is first of all the full form is that Python enhancement proposal, right? And other than that, what it actually does. So it is a set of rules that specify how to format. Okay, how to format. That is not formal. How to basically format. How to format Python code for maximum readability. So basically it is a kind of enhancement proposal in which basically it is a set of rules that specify that how you can format Python code for the maximum readability. Right, so these were the 5 questions that we have discussed today. Let me quickly give you a recap of all those here. So the first question was that what advantages do numpy arrays offer over Python list? This was the very first question that we had seen. After that, we had seen that whenever Python exits, why is not all the memory deallocated? Listen to me very carefully that this is a very important question and a bit tricky values to a Python array. Right. This is the very first question that comes, that how to add values to a Python array. Right. Now, we all know that what is a Python array, right? We are having an array, and if we just want to add some values into that array, what are the ways which we have? What are the methods? Do we have any functions? If yes, then what are the functions? How to use that function? So these are all of the things that will be covered in this particular question, right? Let's start writing the answer. Let's see what's the way for writing out these types of answers. So I would just begin up here that elements can be added to an array using the, basically we have 3 functions for that, okay? So elements can be added to an array using the append append. This is the very first function which we can use, okay? The second function goes like this, and that is basically extend, okay? This is the second function with which we can add the elements to an array. And basically the third function that goes is and the insert function. This third one is my insert function, which are basically used insert function, okay? So these are the 3 functions which can be used for adding some elements into an array, right? Now basically what's the way how we just do that? Let's see that thing here, right? Okay, let me just get some space here. Fine, let's begin up here. So I will be doing is that I'll be making one variable. Let's say that variable is let's say b. Okay, b is equal to, and I will be defining an array. Okay, so I'm just not writing here import array as arr. That you can just do on your own now. Basically, we had just discussed this thing 2 times previously in the videos, that basically if you just want to make an array in Python programming, so how will be doing that, right? So for that, we just import out that numpy library and just give it a short form, right? So I'm just not going to do that thing right now, and simply using the short form because I'm just writing the code here, right? When you are just writing the code, in that case, you just need to define everything. Okay, so arr dot, and that is basically array. So the bracket goes like this, and basically here let's say I just want to define an array, so this goes like this, and let's say my array is 1, then 2, then 3, let's say then 4. Okay, let's say this is my array which I have declared, which I have made here. Fine. Now basically if I just want to use that append function, so I would just simply write b dot append. Okay, b dot append. I would put out the bracket here, and inside the bracket I would write the number which I want to add on here. Okay, so let's say I want to add 5. I will just write that 5 here, and simply I would be printing. So print and then b. This is the first function, how we just use out the first function. This is the method. Okay, you just define an array. Into that you just make out the array, that is, let's say for me that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. After that we just use out this append function, and in the bracket we just write out the value which we just want to add into this array. Let's say for me it was 5. For you it can be anything, any value, whichever you just want, right? I just wrote that value in the bracket and simply printed out the variable in which I have stored my array. And for me that is actually b, right? So just done that. Other than this, now my another function goes like I'm just using b dot extend. Okay, this extend function is like this. Now basically if I just want to add multiple elements, like I just want to add multiple numbers inside my array, so in that case we just use out this extend function. Okay, I just like put out the round bracket and the large bracket. Inside this I'll be writing all the numbers which I just want to add. Let's say that are 6, 7, 8. Okay, let's say these are the three numbers which I just want to add. So I can just write them in, I can just like define a list here, and I can just write all of these numbers which I just want to add. Okay, so I just wrote that, and I would simply print out the b here. So print, and here goes the b. Right, so if you just want to add one element, so in that case this append function works. Okay, if you just want to add multiple elements, in that case this extend function actually works. Now, so that is next function that we are going to discuss is b dot insert. So that is insert like this. Okay, now let's say you want to insert any particular number at any particular position. Okay, at any particular position you just want to enter any number. So in that case basically this insert function is used. So the procedure goes like this, that first of all I'll be writing out the index value where I just want to insert. Let's say I just want to insert it at the third index. Okay, and which value I want to insert? So let's say I just want to insert 10. Okay, so I'm just writing this in this way. Let me just come down here and let me just let you know this 3 is basically the index where I want to add value. Okay, and what is this 10 basically? This 10 is the value which I want to add, right? So in this case, the very first, this one is my I and this one is my n, that is my number. This is my index and this is the number which I want to add. And simply after this, you'll be printing out print and then the b, right? So I've just written this program under one note. What you can just do is that you can just try out the same program using these functions onto the any ID whichever you are having. And that will basically give you a more clear view and a more clear idea, right? So this is basically how these are the three functions which are actually used to add the values to a Python array. So they are basically append, extend and insert. These are the three functions, right? So one more just thing, remember here that whenever you just want to add one single value, only one value, in that case append is used. Whenever you just want to add multiple values, so in that basically extend is used. And whenever you just want to insert a particular value at a particular place, okay, in that cases the insert function is used, right? Let's move on to the next question for now. So okay, let me just take out this question above. Okay, just 1 second, like this, right here, and I will just let me put down that question here, question 27. Fine. Now my next question says to me that what is a dictionary in Python? Now it is a very simple question, it's a very easy question, but in this you do not need to write the whole n number of lines. You need not to write the 10 or 20 number of lines. I know you must be knowing this topic very clearly and you must be very clear with this topic, right? Because it is a very basic type of topic as well. And basically there are lots of things to understand regarding this topic, right? But you are not going to write the whole thing here. That is, you're not going to write the 20 lines regarding dictionary. No, there is no one going to read out your 20 lines. What they just want is that they just want a accurate and a proper answer. Okay, let's see that how to write out that thing. So what is a dictionary? So the built-in, I would just write that here. Okay, so the built-in data type, in Python, is called dictionary. Okay, it's called dictionary. So basically in Python we have a built-in data type, and that is actually called as dictionary. Okay, now what's the use of this dictionary? So it defines one to one. It defines one to one relation. It defines one to one relationship between keys and values. Another thing regarding that dictionary, okay, that basically this is a built-in data type in Python and just called a dictionary. It defines one-to-one relationship between the keys and values. Now you must be knowing that whenever we just define a dictionary, so in that we have a key and even we have a value for that key, right? So keys are the ones which are present at the left hand side of the colon, and values are the ones which are present at the right hand side of the colon, right? So this is basically what you can just write out regarding the dictionary. So it defines one-to-one relationship between the keys and the values. Other thing which we can add for the dictionaries is that, so I was just writing that thing here, dictionary, DICTIO, right here. So dictionary contains pair of keys. Dictionary contains pair of keys and their corresponding values. So I would just write here corresponding values. Okay, so basically what does the dictionaries consist of? Actually the dictionaries actually contain the pair of keys and basically corresponding values to that. So this was the thing only which I just mentioned right now, right? That basically dictionaries have keys and values. So basically dictionaries contain the pair of keys and their corresponding values. Other than this, basically we can just even add one more definition here, one more like thing here, that basically the dictionaries, I would just write that thing here, that dictionaries are indexed by keys. Dictionaries are indexed by keys, right? This is all. You just not need to write anything else without regard anything else other than these things, right? These are the very important things that we just can write about the dictionary. Many main key points regarding dictionary. Now you need not to write here that basically on the left hand side of the colon we have a key, on the right hand side we have a value, and we can just use this function in this, and basically those things are not at all needed. What they just want is that they are simply ask you a question that what is dictionary in Python. So you need to tell that it is a built-in data type. After that it defines one-to-one relationship between keys and values. Dictionaries contain pair of keys and their corresponding values, and they are indexed by the keys. This is all about the dictionaries. You need not to write n number of lines regarding dictionary. Okay, other than this, whenever you are just asked a question like this built-in data types and that define this type, or what are dictionaries in Python, so you need to give some example as well. So that basically is a good practice which you can just do. Okay, so we can just write even a short code for this dictionaries as well. Okay, so let's say I will be defining a dictionary, that is my underscore dict. Okay, my underscore dict. Okay, now let's say I would be just writing, okay, now basically just do not give any unmeaningful things here. Okay, just do not give any unmeaningful things. Write a proper meaningful, put the proper meaningful values inside the my underscore dict. Okay, that let's say I'll be writing that on Monday I need to study, let's say I need to study mathematics. Okay, on Monday I need to study mathematics, and basically we separated by the commas, right? Comma. And let's say on Tuesday, okay, on Tuesday I basically study, let's say English. Okay, on Tuesday let's say I want to study English, right? Comma. Now basically let's go on with the next. Let's say on Wednesday, okay, on Wednesday let's say let's say I want to study computers. Okay, I would just write here computer. So this much only you need to define. Again, you need not to take all the number of days, right? Only one or two or three things are needed inside the dictionary. So now this Monday colon maths, this is my one whole dictionary, right? This is my Monday is my key for it, and this maths is my value. So Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday are my keys, maths, English and computer are my values, right? Other than that, if you just want to, let's say, now let's say you just want to print a particular value for any key. Let's say you are having a key that is Tuesday. Now with the help of a program, with the help of a like code, you want to see that what is the value which you have associated with this particular key. Okay, so how to just do that thing? So in that case, I'll be adding, you just need to add out the print statement, put out the brackets, inside this define the variable in which you have stored your dictionary. So for us, for me, that is my underscore dict, right? I have just stored my dictionary in this particular variable, my underscore dict. Put out the large brackets, and inside this large bracket, just write out the name for the key which you are searching. Let's say I'm just searching for Tuesday. Okay, I just want to search out that what value I have stored in my particular key, that is Tuesday. So as soon as you are going to run out this thing here, so you'll be basically getting the value that is English. Okay. So that will be the value which you have associated with your key, that is Tuesday, right? So this is over. Other than this, basically, let's say you just want to, this one is the first case. Now let's say what you just want is that for another thing also you just want, so you can just write all the things like this only, fine. You can just want to search for Monday, you want to search for Tuesday, you want to search for Wednesday, and all these things you can just write that on your own, right? So basically, even I just covered one more another question here, that basically, let's say question comes that if you are like having a key, okay, if you are given a key, then how you will be finding out that what is the value of that particular key using the Python code, right? So you'll be just defining out the dictionary will be given to you. Simply you need to write out print, the name for the variable in which your dictionary is stored, put out the large brackets, and basically you just need to enter that basically for what key actually you are searching. So let's say you are searching for Tuesday. So that is done here, right? Right. So basically, I hope this dictionary thing is very much clear to you, that how we just like make out the dictionaries in the Python programming, and basically how to execute that. Now, my next question comes here. The number third question comes that basically how do you write comments in Python? So this question is already covered one more time previously. So I'm just repeating that once again here. Okay. So let me just write out the things and let you know that how to answer this question in a short and an accurate manner. Okay. So how do you write comments in Python? So comments in Python start with a hash character. The very first thing is that they start with a hash character, right? So I will just write that comments in Python start with a hash character. Other than that, basically at many times, okay? Many times I would just write that thing as well here, that many times commenting, that is basically commenting means commenting different lines, right? So commenting at many times commenting is done using docstrings, and regarding the docstrings we had already studied and even seen as like quite a example, a very good explanation regarding that what are these docstrings, what is the place that where docstrings are used, why we just use docstrings, right? So in that case I have particularly mentioned the docstrings for the functions. But other than this, basically docstrings are also used for writing out the multiple lines, right? So let's say you want to write the comment for 4 to 5 lines. So in that case, it's not a good idea to again and again put the hash sign in the starting and then writing. So basically, we just declare the docstrings. So docstrings are actually declared that we just put these 3 semicolons. Basically, we just take 3 pairs. Okay, 3 pairs of inverted commas, that are total 6. So 3 goes another side and 3 goes another side. And between these 3 here, you just write out your comment, the strings whichever you just want to mention. So this is basically how you can just write out the multiple line comments. Okay, when you are having more than 2 to 3 lines, so in that case basically you can just use out this docstring way. Other than that, what you can just do is that if you're just having 1 or 2, so in that you can just put out this hash character and just add on the things like whatever the comments you want to add, right? So these are 2 ways which you can write here. So you're not going to tell only one way, you will be telling both of the ways if this question is asked to you, right? So basically, let's say, okay, I would just write out the one comment for you as well. Let me show you how to write out. Fine, so I would just put on this hash here, and let's say Python interview questions. I would just say, okay, this is interview, Python interview questions, right? Questions. So this is the one way which you actually use, right? And other than this, basically, what we have other than this, you can just use this multiple as well. So right, put the three is the starting single three, right? Other than this, just write out here. Let's say I would be just writing that I am okay. I am trying. I am trying to solve. I'm trying to solve these. Let me just calm down, okay? I'm trying to solve these questions on my own. Let's say this is the string which you want to enter. So you'll be writing the string in the between, and after that you'll be just writing it loud like this, right? So this is actually how we just put on the doc strings, right? So I hope I just made this thing very clear to you regarding that basically how to put on these things here, right? Now let's me come above, and here goes our next question. Okay, just 1 minute. So our next question goes like this, that basically what are the functions in Python? A very interesting topic, a topic that is very much clear to you, right? But in functions also we have many things to tell, but here it's not the case that you need to write the whole 20-50 lines in discussion of the functions. No, you just need to write the very accurate and the very correct answer from which you can just define that what are functions in Python, right? Let's do that thing here. Let's see that how to write out and give out the very accurate answer for this particular topic. Because in this particular topic there are many things which we can't tell, right? Basically what are functions, then we can just go on to the user defined, we can go on to the built-in, then we can just discuss about the built-ins in detail, we can discuss about the user defined, then in user defined we had passing the arguments, without passing the arguments, then we have taking the user input, without taking the user input. We have many things to add in this functions, right? But how to give out the correct and the accurate answer, that we'll be seeing here, right? Let's begin up here. So a function is a book of code which is executed only when it is called. So this is the very true fact about the functions, right? Functions, that whatever you just write inside the function, it is of no use till the time you are calling that. So functions all basically give us the output. They actually run whenever we just call that function. So that same thing I've just written on here, that a function is a book of code which is executed only when it is called, right? So to define a function in Python, to define a function in Python, we use def keyword, right? You all know that basically def is the keyword which is used for defining a function in Python. This much is sufficient for a person to explain that what are functions in Python. Right now here the question is not to you, that basically let me know that how many types of functions we have in Python programming. So you need not to write out that thing. Why to just write on the many extra things? Because there is no one going to read out these things for you, right? Only answer that much things which are actually asked to you. So the question was that what are functions in Python? So a function is a book of code which is executed only when it is called. To define a function in Python, we use def keyword, right? Only this much is sufficient. After this, you can just take an example and show that basically how we can just write out a function, right? So let's say I'm just writing out that thing here as well. So let's say def and mul. Okay, let's not give me that thing. Def product. Okay, def product, let's say, is the my function. Okay, I've just put on the brackets here, and I would just not pass anything here. Okay, let's say def product is my function. And inside this, I would just write out a print statement that it calculates the multiplication. It calculates the multiplication. Okay, you can just write the whole procedure for finding out the multiplication by taking the numbers and all those things, but I'm not going to add that thing because I'm just not going to tell you that how to write out this thing, because you know I'm just going to tell you that at what place we just do the function calling and at what place we just do the function definition. And right coming out of my function, I'll be just writing here product and the bracket like this. So the very first step where I just wrote def product, this space is where we just call that we have defined a function. So this line is, this procedure is actually called as function definition. You can just call it as function definition / you can just even name it as declaration. Okay, so function definition or declaration are the names for the very first line where you have written the def keyword and given the name for your function which you are trying to make. Other than this, the last line where you just simply use the name for the function, that is basically your, that is the step where you just do the function calling, right? So these are the two main steps in the function. The first one is that function definition / declaration, and another one is basically the function calling. So I hope I told you both the ways, that basically where you just do the function calling and where you just do the function definition, right? Now we are basically at the last of the question which we are going to discuss today, and basically that is how is memory managed in Python. Now it's a very interesting question and even a very important question. You must be knowing this answer very well, right? That basically how is memory managed in Python. So let's start up writing the things. So I'm just writing something in the points as well today, okay? So memory is managed in Python by Python private heap space, by Python private heap space. So this is the way that how a memory is managed in Python. So memory managed in Python by Python private heap space. Okay, all the Python objects, all Python objects and data structures. So basically, what are the objects are there, and whatever the data structures are there, are located in a private heap. Okay, so basically whatever the objects and the data structures you are having, they all are located in a private heap basically. So basically the programmer do not have the access. Okay, the private does not actually have the access to this private heap. Okay, only the Python interpreter takes care of this, right? So basically if you will be trying to access the private heap, so you cannot do on your own because you are a programmer, right? So and the programmers do not have the access to this private heap. Only and only the Python interpreter can take care of this, right? This is the very first thing. Other than this, that basically the allocation of the heap space for Python objects, basically how the allocation is done. So allocation for the heap space of Python objects is actually done by the Python's memory manager, right? That is basically done by the Python memory manager. Let me add on this statement here. So allocation of heap space for, let me just come down so that let me just get space for writing. Allocation of heap space of Python object is done by Python's memory manager, Okay, the Python memory manager actually allocates the heap space for the Python objects, and basically it's a basically we have a core API, and that core API gives access to some tools for the programmer to code, right? This is the procedure which actually goes on here, which actually begins, right? Other than this, Python has one more thing. Other than this, Python also has a inbuilt garbage collector. Inbuilt garbage collector. Now, what's the use of this inbuilt garbage collector? Which basically recycles all the unused memory so that it can be made available for the heap space, right? So it basically recycles all the unused memory whichever you are having in your basically like code in the space, so that it is basically basically it is made available for the heap space, right? So basically these are the three ways for these are three statements that how the memory managed in Python. This is the answer for this. How is memory managed in Python? So memory is managed in Python by Python private heap space. All Python objects and data structures are located in a private heap. Right? Allocation of heap space for the Python object is done by Python's memory manager. Python also has an inbuilt garbage collector that is basically used to recycle the unused space so that it is made available for the heap space. Right? Than that, the Python programmer do not have the access to this private heap. Only the Python interpreter takes care of this. Right, so these were the 5 questions that we have discussed today. Let me quickly revise all of the questions for now. So the first question that we have discussed today was that how to add values to a Python array. The very first question that we have discussed. Then it was what is a dictionary in Python. Then it was how do you write comments in Python. Moving forward, we were having what are functions in Python. And the last question which was to remove values to a Python array. Now basically my question goes here that how we can just remove the values to a Python array. Right, this is the question for now. So let's get started with the answer for now. So I'm just writing that array elements. Okay, I'm just writing the answer that array elements can be removed, array elements can be removed using, basically we have two functions from which with the help of which functions we can just remove out the array elements if we just want, right? We can just remove the values from a Python array, right? So array elements can be removed using the first function is pop, okay, or my second function is basically the remove function, pop or remove, right? These are the two functions with the help of which we can basically remove the values to a Python array. Right, now we'll be seeing basically that what is the difference between the pop and the remove as well, right? Because there are two functions, there must be some difference between both of these functions. Right, so let's write here an example. Let's take an example, and with that only we'll just say that what's the difference between them. Right, so let's say I have taken a variable that is b, and here I'll be writing arr dot array. Okay, arr dot array. You remember that arr is the short form that we had actually given to the array when we just import it from the library, right? I'm just not writing that thing here, but assume that it is basically written, okay? I'll just give one array here. Let's say that is 1. Okay, I'm just putting these brackets here. Okay, I would just write here 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, comma 5. Okay. Right, so these are the values which I have actually given here, right? Now basically what I is doing is that I'm just closing out that bracket here and like this, right? It is done. So arrays arr dot array 1 2 3 4 5, these are the values which I have actually given here, right? Now basically first of all I'll be using out my pop function. So I'll just write here print and I'll just write a dot pop. Okay. Okay, just 1 second. I would just write that a little bit below so that it's like clearly visible. So I would just write here print, and in the bracket it is a dot pop and like this. Right, now what does the very first function of this pop is that if I just simply written a dot pop, so what it will do, it will automatically eliminate, that is remove the last element from my array. So if I just run out my program here, so in that case, this 5 will automatically be removed from here. So if I'm just not writing any particular number, any index here, so that will automatically take out the last value from my array which I have declared. This is the very first function of the pop. Okay. Now moving towards the second function for the pop, I would just write print and a dot pop, and let's say here in the bracket I have just written out some value. Okay, let's say I just wrote here a value, let's for an index. I would just adding an index. Let's say my index is 2 here. Okay, now what does this actually do? It will take out the value from the second index from here, and as I have just written print here, so in that case basically it will print me that thing. Right, so here basically what it will do, this a dot pop, this pop will actually print me this last value which I am having here, okay, because I have written inside the print statement. And the same thing goes for this index one also. So if I just do not write anything inside here, so that will automatically take the last value. And if I just add some index or something here inside the bracket, so it will basically take that particular index, right? And you all know that basically the index goes from 0, 1, 2, 3 up to n, right? Other than that, now let's see regarding the remove function, that what will the remove function do. Okay, so remove function is not written inside the print statement. Do not write it like this. It's having another procedure. Okay, instead of this ages, let me quickly make that b here because I've taken the variable as b. Now it's okay. I would just write here b dot remove. Okay, b dot remove, and now here in the bracket I'll be writing that value which I want to remove. Okay, so here let's say I just want to remove the value that is 2. So I would just write that value which I just want to remove inside the remove function, and I would at last I would simply print here the b. That will basically print me a new array, and in that new array this 2, right, the 2 number which we are having, that will be removed from that array, right? And basically if I just write print b dot pop and b dot pop in bracket 2, so it will basically result me the value, it will give me the value which I am writing there, right? So this is the basically whole idea regarding the pop and the remove function. This is how you just use the pop and the remove function, right? So the question was that how to remove values to a Python array. So answer for this particular question is that, so array elements can be removed using the pop or the remove function. These are two functions which you basically use out for removing the array elements, right? So basically I hope I just made this question clear to you. Now just let me go here, and now basically now let's move towards the second question that we are having for. Now let me just come down and show you right here. Okay. Now, basically, my second question goes here that how can the ternary operators be used in Python? Ternary operators, ternary means 3, right? So how can this ternary operator be used in the Python programming? Let's see out the answer for this, okay? So I would just write here that the ternary operator. First of all, we'll be telling that what is a ternary operator actually, okay? So the ternary operator is the operator. It is the operator that is used basically, that is used to show the conditional statements. Okay, conditional statements. So this is basically what we just meant from okay, okay, just let me write out the correct spelling. Is statements right here. Okay, so this is actually what first of all the ternary operator is. So the ternary operator is an operator that is used to show the conditional statements. Whenever we are just having some multiple conditions, in that case we just apply out this condition, this ternary operator. Okay, other than this, my next thing comes that this consists of, okay, so next is that this consists of the true or false values, true or false values with a statement that has to be evaluated. So basically the output which you get in the form of this, like using the ternary operator, that consists of the true or the false values with the basically statements that you want to be get evaluated, right? This is actually what we had just discussed about the ternary operators for now, right? That the ternary operators is the operator that is used to show the conditional statement. Okay, other than this, this consists of the true or false values with a statement that has to be evaluated. Now let's see out that basically how we just write the syntax and all those things. Okay, so let me just write here syntax. Okay, syntax is basically firstly here we just write on underscore. Okay, not like this, that is basically like this, on underscore true. Okay, now if basically one of my statements is written this side, okay, this is my statement 1, take it to statement 1, let's say. So stage 1, let's say, like this. Okay, so this is my first statement. So I have this written here if. Okay, now if after this if, what we just write out the expression here, expression basically on which we just want to the program to be evaluated. So that I've just written out my expression. Other than that, we just write here else. Okay, else, and else here I'm just writing on underscore false. and this is basically my statement number 2. Okay, now just have a look that if this is my, okay, let me take out a highlighter here so that it will be more okay, right here. Fine. My things, my conditions goes like that. My first condition is if, okay, if this expression which we have written, if this is true, okay, if the expression which we have written inside this is true, then basically this part will be executed, that is on true. That is my statement number 1. This will be executed. Otherwise, this is statement number, otherwise if this condition is not true, then basically my on false statement, which it is written here, on underscore false, that is my statement 2, it will be executed. So on underscore true means that if my condition for the if is correct, then this on true statement will be like taken, otherwise this on underscore false statement will be taken. Right, basically I hope you had got a like little bit of idea that how it actually works, right? Other than that, we'll be seeing one example, then it will be more clear to you, right? Let's see an example here. Okay, fine. So let me just write one program here, one short program that will basically, let's say, give us some values. Let's say I'm having x comma y, and both of them are having the value as, let's say, 25 comma 50. Okay, so x is having the, let's say, value 25 and y is, let's say, having the value as 50. Okay, I would be just writing all the things in one statement because I am using my ternary operator, right? I would just write here. Okay, now after this 50, let's say I just took a variable that is max. Okay, let's say max is equal to, and that is, let's say, x here. Okay, so if x is less than y, else y. Okay, now let me explain that actually what I just have written, what I just meant from here. Fine, understand it in way that x and y are the two variables which I have taken, 25 and 50 are the values which we have given. Okay, main part of this starts from here that if x is less than y, basically the value which we are having in x, if that is less than y, then what to do? Then max is equal to x. So max is the variable, and in that case basically this x would be my answer which I'll be getting. Otherwise, I need to print the y, and in y I am having 50. So the output for this particular question would be 25, right? Because here what is done actually, this x is actually less than y, right? It is a correct statement. So in that case, this part will be executed, not this part. This part will be executed. Okay. So basically, I hope I just made this thing very clear to you that how we just use out this ternary operators, how we just use this out. Okay. Okay. Okay, just 1 second. Let me go back here and let me just come down first of all. Fine. Let me just write out some things and explain you that in the one more way. So that is basically the expression gets evaluated. The expression gets evaluated like if basically x is less than y. Okay. Else y. Okay. Let's say this is the statement which we have written. In this particular case, what's the whole idea? So in this case, basically, if x is less than y, then basically my condition is true. If x less than y is true, then the value is returned as max is equal to x. In that case, basically this is the value which is returned. And other thing goes that and if it is, okay, let me just come down first of all. And if it is incorrect, then basically max is equal to y. Okay, will be the output. Fine. So basically I have just given it in the explanation as well that if the expression gets evaluated like if x is less than y else y. In this case, if x is less than y is true, then the value is returned as max is equal to x and okay. And if it is incorrect, then max is equal to y will be the output, right? And here the whole things and the explanations are done, right? So basically, I hope that I had just made this thing very clear to you that how this actually ternary operator works and basically how we just use this thing. So let me just see my next question for now. Okay. Basically, my next question goes like that. What is pickling and unpickling? Right now, basically, now we are just going to see about the pickling and the unpickling. Let's write out the answer for this. Okay, so I would just write here pickle module. Okay, so pickle module accepts any Python object. Pickle module accepts any Python object. Pickle module accepts any Python object and converts it into a string. Okay, so pickle module accepts any Python object and converts it into a string. Representation and dumps it into a file using dump function. Right, so basically what is the use of the pickle module? So pickle module actually accepts any Python object and converts it into a string representation and dumps it into a file using that dump function. And this particular process which I just written right now, so I will just write that this process is called actually pickling. That is pickling, right? Basically, if you do not know about this, so I hope that you have got it now. That what is actually pickling. Now, another thing comes that right here, that when not when, that is basically while. Let me just write that pickling full stop. So here it goes that while the process okay, let me just come down first of all. So while the process of retrieving original Python objects, while the process of retrieving original Python objects from the stored string representation, present representation is called unpickling. Right? So this is the basically definitions for the pickling and the unpickling. Let me just revise that once again here. So the pickle module actually accepts any Python object and converts it into a string representation and dumps it into a file using dump function. This process is actually called as pickling. Other than that, while the process of retrieving original Python objects from the stored string representation is called unpickling. Right? So basically, I just hope that I made this thing very clear to you, that what we just meant from pickling and what we just meant from unpickling. Right? Now, let's see regarding the fourth question, that is what is underscore init. Okay, what we just meant from this underscore init. So I would just add on here that underscore init. First of all, basically you must have got the clear idea and like basically revised it, that it is from the topic of the classes and objects. Right? This is from the topic of the classes and objects. So underscore init underscore is a method. So basically, it is a method or constructor in Python. So first of all, you can just say that it is a method or a constructor in the Python programming language in Python, right? Next thing goes that this method, okay, this method is automatically this method is automatically called. It is automatically called to allocate memory when a new object, or we just call this object as an instance as well. It is another name, right? So this method is automatically called to allocate the memory when a new object / instance of a class is created, and basically whatever the classes you have made, okay, so in that case basically all classes have the underscore init underscore method. So whatever the classes you'll be making, all the classes will be having this method, right? Now basically let's quickly see an example for this as well, that basically if we are asked to write a program using the init method, how we are just gonna do that thing. Let's make a class, and let's say my class is, let's say, student. Okay, I just made out a class that is student. Inside this I'll be defining my init function, so def underscore init. Okay, so let me write out the correct spelling, that is init, right here, underscore, and in the bracket itself will automatically be passed. And let's say I have just taken name comma, and let's say name comma marks. Okay, let's say these are the two parameters which I have taken, right? Let me just scroll to the other side a little bit. Fine here. Okay, now basically inside this I'll be just writing self dot name is equal to name, and basically self dot marks is equal to marks, right? These are the values which we have given. And after this coming down from here, I will be just coming out of my class, and I'll be just let's say I would be just making a let's say object, or you can just call it as instant. Let's say that is S1. Okay, and into that I'm just writing my class name, that is the student, and inside that I'll be passing the values for the self functions for the parameters which I have taken. So let's say name is A, and let's say marks are 95. Okay, so this is basically how we just use out. And if you just want to print anything, so in that case I'd be just writing print s1 dot name, like this I'd be just writing. Fine. So this is basically how we just define the init method. Okay, this is how actually we just define out the init method here, right? Let's move on to the next question for now. And basically okay, let me come down and see where's that question right here. So my next question comes to me, that what is namespace in Python? So basically the answer for this question is very easy. So I would just write that thing here as well. A namespace is a naming system. A namespace is a naming, let me come down first of all so that I can just write it properly. A namespace is a naming system. I would just write that here, system used to, a namespace is a naming system used to make sure that names are unique, to avoid naming conflicts, FLICTS. So this is actually what the namespace is actually used for. So a namespace is a naming system which is actually used to make sure that the names are unique to avoid the naming conflicts, right? So basically I hope that you have got a clear and a fair idea regarding all of these 5 questions that we have discussed today, right? Let me just quickly give you an overview of all the 5 questions that we have discussed. So first of all, we had seen that how to remove the values to an Python array, right? Then we had seen that how can the ternary operators be used in the Python. With an example we had seen, right? Then we had seen that what is pickling and unpickling, right? Then we had seen that what is the init function that we have in the classes and methods with an example. And at last we had seen that what is namespace in Python, right? So basically I hope I just made all of these questions and the answers for these very clear to you, and even we had revised about the topics also a little bit with these particular modules. Name some commonly used built-in modules in Python. We all know that Python has n number of modules, right? It has many modules. So first of all, we just need to define that what we just understand with the Python modules. And other than that, what we need to do is that we need to write some built-in module names, which are mostly and which are commonly used in the Python programming language, right? So let's start writing out the definition about the Python modules, right? So first let's say that what definition we'll be giving here. So Python modules are the type of files. Okay, I will just write here files. Okay, so Python modules are files containing Python code. So this is the very first thing which you can tell about the Python modules that Python modules are files that contains the Python code. Okay. Okay, just let me quickly take the eraser from here and let me erase this all and let me now just quickly write that thing once again. 1 second just. Okay, files containing. So that is contain. Okay, so Python modules are the files containing Python code. So modules are a type of files that contain some Python code already written into that, right? Other than that, this code can either be this code can either be functions classes or variables. Okay, or variables. So the code that is written can either be functions, classes, or variables, whatever like is written inside that, right? And full stop. After that, a Python module is a .py file. A Python module is a .py file containing executable code containing executable code. Right, so this is the definition regarding the Python modules which you will be telling if this particular question is asked. So in this case, basically, a Python modules are files containing Python code. So the very first thing is that Python modules are type of files that contain some Python code written into that. Right, other than that, the code which is written, that can be either functions, classes, or variables. It can be anything, right? Other than that, a Python module is basically a .py file that contains the executable code, right? So a Python module is a .py file containing the executable code that we can just execute, right? Okay. Other than that, my second question which was asked to me was that basically let me know about some most commonly used built-in modules in Python, right? Now let's give the answer for this particular question. So here goes some commonly used built-in modules. Some commonly used built-in modules like this. Okay, some commonly used built-in modules. Now let's start it from here. So my very first module is basically my JSON module. JSON. Right, you have heard about the JSON type of files which we have. So the JSON is also like type of file which we have, and it is actually used when we just want to extract some data from any website or something in that. In that case, basically we just use out the JSON files, right? Other than that, I have the module that is math. Now, math is also very useful module that contains many mathematical functions like trigonometric functions, sine, cos, and all these functions are actually contained by this math function. Other than that, I have another that is date time. Date time module is basically a time module which is actually used to tell you the current date, current time, and basically it is used in all of these things like this, right? So date time is a module, another module which is frequently used and commonly used in the Python programming language. Other than that, I have the OS module. This OS is also one of the modules which is actually used a lot of in making out the project. Whenever we just want to make out some projects, in that case, basically it is used the most. And then the most used module in Python is the random module. This is the frequently and the most used module, because random is like from this name particularly you are able to see that understand that basically random is something that generates some random values to you, right? So in that case, this random is a module which actually generates some random values to you to get out some other things. We want to apply this random model in any other thing, and in that case basically it has many n number of functions which actually helps you to take different type of random values as well. Right, so this is the whole idea regarding this random module. And other than that, I have another one that is SYS. Okay, these are the 6 modules which are commonly used in the Python programming language. Let me just repeat out that all the ones. So that is JSON, math, datetime, OS, random, and SYS. Right? So basically, I guess that you have got a fair and a clear idea regarding all that first of all, that what is a Python module. Other than that what are the built-in modules that you have in the Python programming language and that are basically commonly used. Okay, let's move on to the next question for now. And my next question goes like that: what is a lambda function? My next question is that what do you understand from the lambda function? Right now, in that case, basically, I'll be answering out this question with the definition as well. Okay, so basically, there is one another name for the lambda function, and that is actually called the anonymous function. Okay, we just call the lambda function as an anonymous function as well. Okay, so I would just write that thing as well. So anonymous, right? So an anonymous function. So an anonymous function is known is known as a so an anonymous function is known as a lambda function. As I just repeated this thing right now, that another name for the lambda function is anonymous function, right? So an anonymous function is known as a lambda function. In after full stop, I would just write the function. The function can have any number of. It can have basically any number of parameters. It can have any number of parameters. Okay, just 1 second. Parameters. Let me write that again. Fine. Let me come down. So basically it can have any number of parameters like this. Okay. But there is one condition actually which applies here. Okay, the function can have any number of parameters, but one condition that applies here is that but can have just one statement, just one. And okay, just let me calm down first of all. Can have only one statement. So first thing that comes for the lambda functions is that it is also called as anonymous function, right? Second thing that comes is that this function can have any number of parameters but can have just one statement. A statement can only be one, but it can have any number of parameters which actually it wishes, right? Okay, let's see a quick example for the lambda function, that how we just write out the lambda function, right? So let's say I just took a variable that is a, okay, and simply I would just write here lambda. Okay, lambda. Now I would be just passing out my parameters. Let's say that are c comma d. Okay, now let's say I just want to do the subtraction, so c minus d, and simply in the print statement, first of all I would just writing the parameter, that is let's say a, and in the bracket let's say I be passing the values 10 comma 2. Right, this is actually how we just write down lambda function. This is how we declare the values, and this is the whole syntax, that first of all you just need to write a variable. In that you need to write is equal to then lambda, and for the lambda you need to put out the variables on which you just want to perform this function, lambda function, right? You need to put a colon, and after that you need to write that particular thing which you want to do here. Let's say that you want to do the subtraction between c minus d. So you just wrote that thing, and simply just need to print out. After that you need to write the variable name, and simply just need to write out the values for which you want to do out the subtraction, and that's it. Okay, right, let's come on to the next line here, and let's go above and see out the next question. So my next question says to me that it asks to me that what are generators in Python. Now let me know that what are the generators in Python. Okay, now for this question particularly, we have very simple definition, and that I'll be just writing here, that functions that return an iterable set of items are called generators. Okay, so the functions that return an iterable set of items are called the generators. This is what are generators in Python, right? This is a very simple definition which you can just learn and even revise as well, that functions that return an iterable set of items are called the generators. Iterable, you all know, right? We have already discussed about the iterators previously, that what are iterators, right? Okay, now let's move towards some another question. Like we are left with 2 questions for now. Let's move towards the 4th question. Now this 4th is a very interesting and a very important question, right? That what does this asterisk args and asterisk kwargs, right? What do we just mean from these 2 terms, and why we should use this, right? What's the use of this in the Python programming? In what cases we just use it, and all those things. Right, so let's start in the answer. With that only we'll be understanding the things as well, right? Let's start. So basically here I'll be adding that we use args. First of all, I'll be just talking about the args, okay? So we use args when we okay, when like this, when we, okay, just one second, let me just take out the color once again right here. When we are not sure, how many arguments, arguments how many arguments are going to be passed to a function, right? Now basically we use asterisk args when we are not sure that how many arguments are basically going to be passed into a function. Okay, now this is the particularly case where we just need the use of the args. Other case, one more case actually comes here. Let me just write that as well, comma, or if we want to pass, a stored, or if we want to pass a stored list or tuple of, let me just calm down, okay? Or if we want to pass a stored list or tuple of arguments, to a function. Okay, so this is basically the use of the asterisk args. That is basically my args function. Now after this, let's move towards the kwargs function. Let's see that what is the use of this kwargs function. So I would just write double asterisk and I would just add here kwargs. Okay, now kwargs is used, now basically it is used when we don't know, when we do not know how many keyword arguments, okay, let me just calm down, okay? So asterisk kwargs is used when we do not know how many keyword arguments will be passed, okay, just one second, okay, how many keyword arguments will be passed to a function. Okay, when we just do not know that how many keyword arguments will be passed to a function, in that case basically we just use out this asterisk kwargs. Okay, now it can be used to pass the value of a dictionary as keyword arguments, right? So this is a like case where this asterisk args and asterisk kwargs are used. Okay, right. Let me just quickly revise the things that we have actually studied about and listened about the args and the kwargs. So basically, we use asterisk args when we are not sure how many arguments are going to be passed to a function, or if we want to pass a stored list or tuple of arguments to our functions, right? And now basically asterisk kwargs is used when we do not know how many keyword arguments will be passed to a function, or it can be used to pass the value of a dictionary as keyword arguments. Right, now basically this is the case. These are the two definitions, these are the two uses that why we just use this asterisk args and asterisk kwargs. Now basically it's not the case that we can just only write asterisk args. You can just write asterisk a, asterisk b, you can just put on these things as well. But basically what is the case, that the identifiers args and kwargs are a convention that you could use actually. Okay, like basically you can just use any convention. Let's say instead of args and instead of kwargs you can just write anything, like okay, a, b, c, d, whatever just wish you can just write. But args and kwargs are basically a given particular conventions which are actually used. So in that case basically we just always prefer to basically use out this as well. Right, now let's move towards the last question for now, and that is basically, does Python has oops concept? Okay, does Python have oops concept, right? So in that case, I'll be just writing Yeah, you all know that yes, it has, but how to give out the answer? You will simply not be saying that yes, Python has oops object. This will not be a correct way to answer out an interview question. Right, so I was just telling you just how to answer. So Python is an object oriented programming language. This thing we all know, right? And even in the previous interview questions, we had already discussed this thing as well, right? That Python is an object oriented programming language, right? Now, this means that what does we mean from it? So, this means that we, okay, this means that, one second, not we, this means that any program, any program can be, let me calm down. Python is an object-oriented programming language. This means that any program can be solved in Python by creating this, like it can be any of the program can be solved in Python by creating an object model, okay. And basically, however, Python can be treated as procedural as well as a structural language as well, but there is no such need to write that thing. I can just only let you know that however Python can be treated as procedural as well as a structural language also, right? So this is the answer that you are going to give, that if does Python has oops concept or not. So you're not going to simply write that yes, okay, you're just not simply going to write the answer as yes. So you need to give out the answer in a little bit of explanatory way. So in that case, you'll be giving out that Python is an object-oriented programming language. This means that any program can be solved in Python by creating any object any object model, right? So these were the 5 questions that we have discussed today. Let me just give you an overview of all the 5 questions that we have discussed today, right? So my very first question was that what are Python modules? Name some commonly used built-in modules in Python. So we had seen that what are the Python modules? So these are the files containing the Python code. Right? This code can be either in functions, classes, or variables, and a Python module is a .py file containing executable code. And we had seen some commonly used built-in modules that were JSON, math, datetime, OS, random, and SYS. After that, we had seen that what is a lambda function. So I just told you that basically the another name for the lambda function is anonymous function. So an anonymous function is known as a lambda function. The function can have any number of parameters but can just have one statement. Right? And this was the example that we had seen. After that, we had seen that what are generators in Python. So there was a super simple definition for the generators, and that was functions that return an iterable set of items are called generators, right? Now, after that, we had seen that what does this mean? Asterisk args, asterisk kwargs, and why we should use it. So we use asterisk args when we are not sure how many arguments are going to be passed to a function, or if we want to pass a stored list or tuple of arguments to a functions, right? And asterisk kwargs is used when we do not know how many keyword arguments will be passed to a function, right? Or it can be used to pass a value of a dictionary as keyword arguments, right? And at last, we had seen that does Python have OOPS concept. So yes, Python is an object-oriented programming language. This means that any program can be solved in Python by creating an object model. So these. Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi. Hope you all are doing well. So basically, welcome to this another part for the Python interview series, and basically today we are going to see the next 5 questions in this interview series. Right, we'll be seeing out that what are the questions related to that, we'll be seeing the answers, and even we'll be just revising the subtopics and a little bit of around the topic. Right, so this is the whole idea that we are gonna follow. So let's get started without wasting out some time. So here we are, my first question, but before that, just let me quickly take one pen color so that I can just write properly right here. Okay, just 1 second more, and right here this one. Okay, so my very first question is that what is the difference between deep and shallow copy? Now here basically I need to list out the differences between the deep copy and between the shallow copy. Right, this is the very first question that has actually came here. So let's get started with the things, and let me start writing out the answer, and with that only I would just start explaining the things as well, okay? So I would just write here that shallow copy. First of all, I will be discussing about the shallow copy. After that, I will be discussing about the deep. Okay, right here. So shallow copy is used when a new instance type gets created and it keeps the values and it keeps the values that are copied in the new instance. So the very first thing is that whenever we just come out with a difference, that we just need to differentiate something, so we need to define something like that. So in that case, the very first thing that we do is that we basically write out the use. Okay, we just basically write out the use, that what is the use of this thing or what is the use of that thing, right? So the very first thing that I just wrote about the shallow copy is that shallow copy is used when a new instance type gets created and it keeps the values that are copied in the new instance. Right? This is the very first difference for the shallow copy. I was just writing all the differences for the shallow copy for the ones, and after that I was just writing all the things for the deep copy. Okay, I would just not differentiate and just make some lines and write that. Okay, right here. After that, the second thing that comes for the shallow copy is that. So I would just write that, and just let me come down so that I can just get some spaces. Okay, that's one step upper side, right? Okay. So shallow copy right here. So shallow copy is used. So shallow copy is used to copy the reference pointers. Is used to copy the reference pointers just like it copies the values. Okay, so this is basically used for copying. Shallow copy is actually used to copy the reference pointers just like it copies the values, right? So this is another thing regarding the shallow copies, right? Other than that, basically there is many more things which are basically there. One more thing is that shallow copy allows faster execution of the program and basically it depends, okay, and it depends on the size of the data that is used, right? So basically shallow copy allows the faster execution of the program and even it depends on the size of the data that is used, right? This is all about the shallow copy. Let me just revise that once and we'll be writing about the deep copy. Okay, so right here that shallow copy is used when a new instance type gets created and it keeps the values that are copied in the new instance. Shallow copy is used to copy the reference pointers just like it copies the values. Okay, shallow copy allows faster execution of the program and it depends on the size of the data that is used, right? This is all of the things regarding the shallow copy which you need to mention for the difference. Now let's move towards the deep copy and let's see that basically what are the things that differentiates the shallow copy and the deep copy, right? So here deep copy is used. First of all, we will write in the use, right? So deep copy is used to store values that are already copied. Okay, that are already copied. Basically it's used to store out the values that are already copied, right? Other than that, deep copy doesn't copy the reference pointers to the objects. So basically it does not copy the reference pointers to the objects, right? Now basically it actually makes the reference of the objects and the new objects that are pointed by some other objects get stored, right? It basically understand it in a way that the changes it basically is used to make the reference to an object, right? This is used for making a reference to an object, right? So let's study about the execution. So in that case, what is the case of the execution? So makes deep copy makes execution. Deep copy makes the execution of the let me come down program of the program slower. It basically makes the execution of the program slower due to, and basically what's the reason? Due to making of certain copies, certain copies for each object for each object that is being called. Okay, so basically it makes the execution of the program slower due to the making of certain copies for each object that is being called. Right, so these are some differences which I have just listed here regarding the shallow copy and the deep copy. Now let's see that what are they. So shallow copy is used when a new instance type gets created and it keeps the values that are copied in the new instance. And what about the deep copy? So deep copy is used, it is basically used to store the values that are already copied. Right, this is the very first difference that comes. Other than that, deep copy does not copy the reference pointers to the object. Basically does not copy that thing, right? And shallow copy allows faster execution of the program and it depends on the size of the data that is used. And for the deep copy makes execution of the program slower due to making of certain copies for each object that is being called. Right, so these are some differences which we can list between the shallow copy and between the deep copy, right? I hope I just made this thing very clear to you that what are the differences between the shallow copy and the deep copy. Right, now let's move towards the next question of ours. Okay, let me just take it to above side right here. My next question is that basically what does len do? Now this is a very simple question and I'm sure that you must be knowing the answer for this particular question, right? Because this is a function which is frequently used, right? We just use this function many a times in our programs. So let me just write that it is used to determine the length of a string. Okay, so this length function is actually used to determine the length of a string, a list, an array, etc, etc, right? So length function is actually used to define out the length of a string, a list, an array, or etc, right? Basically whatever you are having. Okay, so this is the use of the len function. Now if you just want to use out the len function, I can just give you a simple example, very simple example here. That is, let's say I just wrote example. Let's say I just wrote a string that is my underscore string is equal to, let's say, Python. I just write here Python. Okay, so my underscore string is my variable and Python is the string which I have just stored into this my underscore string variable. Now I would just simply write here len, and inside this len I'm just writing the name for the variable for which I just want to find out the length. So I just want to find out the length for the my underscore string variable because in that I have stored this Python. Right, so as soon as you just write this program and run it, you will be getting the desired output, desired length, whatever you are having here. Right, so I hope I just made this thing very clear to you that how we just use out this length function and basically how we just use this as well and what's the use, right? Okay, now let's move towards the another question for now, and that my third question goes here, that how will you capitalize the first letter of the string, right? Now basically let's say you are given that you need to capitalize the first letter of the string. Okay, so now how you will be basically doing that thing. Okay, so to capitalize the first letter of the string, we already have a built-in function in the strings that is actually used to capitalize the first letter, and that function actually is capitalize only, right? So let's see that how we'll be writing out this answer, right? Okay, so I would just write that in Python the capitalize L-I-Z-E, right? In Python, the capitalize method, it is, you can just call that method, as well as you can just call it as function as well, okay? So in Python, the capitalize method, what does it actually do? It capitalizes, okay, just one second. Okay. Basically, in Python, the capitalize method capitalizes the first letter of a string. Okay, the first letter, of a string. It just capitalizes the first letter of the string, and if the string already consists, let me just come down. If the string already consists of a capital letter, like this, okay? If the string already consists of a capital letter at the beginning, then basically it returns you the same string. Okay, just let me write that. Then it returns the original string. Okay, then it will basically return you out the original string, right? So basically, I hope that this is clear to you, that what is the use of the capitalize function. So basically, the if you are having like let's say you are having a string, and in that string the first letter is not capital, okay, and you just want to make that first letter as capital, so simply you can just use out this capitalize function, and that will actually make the first letter of the string capital for you. Other than that, second case comes here, that let's say if you're having a string, and in that string the first letter is automatically capital, and then also just apply out the capitalize function. So what it will do, it will just not change that capital into a small, it will just not do something like that. It will simply return you the string that you are actually having, right? So I hope I just made this thing very clear to you, that what's the use of this capitalize function. Right, let me just go above, and now here is the fourth question. Okay, my question number 4 for today is that basically what is self in Python. Now we just need to define that what is self in Python, right? Okay, so right here. Okay, what is self in Python? Now I'm just writing the answer. So I would just write, okay, this is too much thin, right? Let me just take that previous one only that we were taking right here. Okay, just one second. Okay, fine. Right here, so I will just start writing that the self. Okay, now self is an instance. We all know that it is an instance of an object, right? So just write that thing as well here. So self is an instance of an object, right? It is basically an instance of an object of a class, right? This is the very first definition that we all know, that what self is actually in Python programming, right? So self is an instance of an object of a class, right? Now basically, what do I have here is the next thing that I have is self is an instance of an object of a class. Next, basically, I'll be including that in Python, this is explicitly included as a first parameter, Okay, so whenever we just define a class, and inside that we define a function, so self is the very first parameter that is actually included explicitly. Okay, this is the very first parameter that is included explicitly, and that is basically automatically, right? Now basically we are just not going to talk about some other languages, because this is not the case in the Java, right? So I'll just not write that as thing here, okay? Because here we just discuss about the Python, okay? Right, so explicitly included as a first parameter. Other than that, what is the other thing that it does? So it basically helps to differentiate. Let me just come down first of all. Okay, right here. So it basically helps to differentiate between the methods and attributes and attributes of a class with local variables, with local, and here it is variables, right? So basically it basically even helps us to differentiate between the methods and attributes of a class with local variables, right? Now, other than this, there is one more thing regarding the self function that I will just let you tell you. So I will just write that thing here, that the self variable, okay, the self variable in the self variable in the init method, refers, the self variable in the init method refers to the created object, while in other methods, while in other methods it refers it while in other methods it refers to the object whose method was called, right? So the self variable in the init method refers to the created object, while in other method it refers to the object whose method was called, right? Now, what do it is meant from this line? So this line actually say that we have the self variable in the init method as well, right? We just have that thing. So that so the self variable in the init method refers to the created object. The object which we have created, it actually refers to the self variable which we have inside the init function. Now, in the other method, basically it refers to the object whose method was called. So basically, in other ones, it basically refers to the refers to the object whose method was called, right? So I hope I just made this thing very clear to you that what is the use of the self function. Now, basically, let's move towards the last question for today, and that is basically what are local and global variables in Python, right? Let's see about those things. So first of all, I'll be defining the global variables, and after that, I'll be defining out the local variables, right? Okay. So global variables. So the variables declared outside a function outside a function or in a global scope. So the variables declared outside a function or in a global scope are called global variables, right? So the variables declared outside a function or in a global scope are called the global variables. Now, these variables can be let me just calm down. Okay, so these variables can be accessed by any function in the program. Okay, so these are the variables that can be accessed by any of the functions in the program. Okay, let's talk about the local variables. So this was about the global variables, right? Okay, let me just go above for a while, just 1 second, right here. Right here for the global variables, that the variables declared outside a function or in a global scope are called the global variables. These variables can be accessed by any function in the program. Now, talking about the local variables, I would just write that any variable, okay, so any variable declared inside a function is known as a local variable. So any of the variables declared inside a function is known as a local variable. Okay. So this variable is present in the local space. This variable is present in the local space and not in the global space, Okay. So this variable is present in the local space, not in the global space. So any variable declared inside the function is called as a local variable, right? Now let's quickly see an example for this thing as well, or how we can just say about the local and the global variables, right? So let's say when I just take it one variable, let's say a is equal to 1. Okay, I just make a function that is def mul, that is my multiply, and the bracket like this, let's say, okay. Inside this, let's say I define a function like variable, and that is b is equal to, let's say, 5. Okay, and I just wrote c is equal to a multiplication b, right? And simply I would just print out the print here as c. Okay, and simply outside the function I would just call out that function. Okay, that is my multiplication, or this one right here. Okay, I would just write it as this, right? So now this one, which I have just made it here, now this one is actually my global variable because I have declared this outside my function, right? And this b that I have made, actually this is my local variable because I have declared that inside the function, right? So I hope that you have got a clear and a fair idea regarding the global and the local variables. So let's quickly see about all of the questions that we have discussed today. So the very first question was that what is the difference between the deep and the shallow copy. So we had seen the differences between the deep and between the shallow copy. After that, we had seen that what does len actually do. So len was a function that we had seen that what is the use of this function. Other than that, we had seen that how will you capitalize the first letter of the string. So we had seen that if you just want to capitalize the first letter of a string, so how will you be able to do that thing, right? Then we had seen that what is self in Python. We had seen that what actually the self in Python means. And then we had at last seen that what are local and what are global variables in Python, right? So basically, I hope that you must be very clear with all of these 5 questions, the explanation, the answers, and all of these things are absolutely clear to you, right? So we'll be meeting with some other questions in the next video. So this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and take care. Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi. Hope you all are doing well. So welcome to this another part for the Python interview series, and now today basically we are going to look the next 5 questions in this Python interview series. Right, so basically now today I'll be telling you about the questions, the answers, the detailed explanation for those answers, and even we'll be revising out some little topics regarding that particular question as well. Right, so let's get started without wasting up the time. Okay, so here I am with my very first question for now, that how is multi-threading achieved in Python. Now this is a very good question, that basically that how is multi-threading achieved in Python. Now you first of all you know that multi-threading is the part of that threads module, right? With the help of the threads module and the threading module, we just do the multi-threading and we just do on all these things like this, right? Now, so let's answer this question, and I'll be answering this question with some sub points as well. Okay, I'll just put on some sub points here and I'll be answering out the question. So let's get started here, right here. So my very first thing that I'm just going to write is about the module only, that Python has a multi-level, multi-threading. I'm just not multi-level, it's multi-threading. So Python has a multi-threading package. As I mentioned in the very starting as well, that it has a package for it, right? Package. But if you want to multi-thread, now basically why we just multi-thread? There are many cases for the multi-threading, why we just do that, right? But if you want to multi-thread to speed your code up, to speed your code up, then it's usually not a good idea to use it. Basically, if you just want to use some multi-threading, for basically, let's say you want to multi-thread your speed, you just want to increase the speed of your code. So in that case, if you're just using this multi-threading like concept, so that is basically not a good idea. Now why is that so? So let me just answer that question here as well. Let me just put on the second point and let me write that thing here, that Python has a construct called GIL. Okay, let me just calm down first of all. So Python actually has a construct and that is actually called as GIL. Now I'm just not writing the full form of GIL, I'm dictating that. So GIL actually stands for Global Interpreter Lock. Okay, just remember that thing. I'm just not going to write it because. Friends, I would just again repeat once that Python has a construct called GIL and G stands for Global, I stands for Interpreter and L stands for the lock. Okay, so that means Global Interpreter Lock. So the GIL which we have, okay, so the GIL makes sure that only one of your threads can execute at any one time. So basically, what's the use of this GIL? That is my global interpreter lock. So that makes sure that only one of your codes can execute at one time. Okay, so basically full stop, and here I'll just write a thread acquires the GIL. The thread acquires the GIL. That is basically my global interpreter lock. GIL, comma, it basically does a little work, comma, then passes the GIL onto the next thread. Then passes the, let me come down. Okay, then passes the, okay, just one second. Then passes the GIL onto the next thread. So this is basically how the GIL actually works in the threads. So basically first thing is that it basically allows to execute one thread at only one time, right? Other than that, a thread acquires the GIL, that does a little work, then passes the GIL onto the next thread. Okay, this is actually how it works. Now, next thing that we'll be just writing about this, that basically how it takes place and what changes we are able to see in the code after applying this GIL and this multi-threading, right? Let's see that thing. So here I'll be just writing out this answer that this happens very quickly. So to the human eye, it may not. So basically, we are not able to see that from our human eyes actually. So this happens very quickly. So we are not able to see that. So it may like seem to you that your thread are executing in the parallels. Okay, this happens very quickly, comma, so to the, okay, just let me write this another way. So to the right here. So to the human eye, it may seem that it may seem like let me come down. It may seem like you that threads are executing it parallel. Seem like you threads are executing in parallel. Okay, so this is actually what thing happens here, that it is very quickly, so that human eyes, it is not at all basically possible for human eyes to see, and they basically we are able to see this in a way that all the threads which are actually made, they are executing in the parallel, but they are not really just like executing in the parallel. Right, these are the three things which we can just write on the things. Now, another one thing about the GIL as well, I would just add on here, that all this GIL passing adds overhead to the execution, adds overhead to execution. Okay, so this GIL passing adds the overhead to the execution. This means that if you want to make your code run faster, then using the threading package often is not a good idea. Right, I hope you got the idea that basically what is this, that basically how is multi-threading achieved in Python. So this is the way how we just achieve out the multi-threading in Python. So Python has a multi-threading package, but if you want to multi-thread to speed your code up, so that is not basically a good idea, right? Python has a construct called GIL, Global Interpreter Log. The GIL makes sure that only one of your threads can execute at any one time. Okay, a thread acquires the GIL, does a little work, then okay, just 1 second right here, and then passes the GIL onto the next thread. This happens very quickly, so to the human eye, it may seem like your threads are executing in parallel, and all this GIL passing adds overhead to the execution, right? So basically, I hope that you have got a clear and a fair idea that actually how these things actually work, right? Basically, how this multi-threading is achieved in Python. Now, moving towards the next question for today, and that is basically explain split, sub, and subn methods of RE module in Python. Okay, so we have a module that is RE module in Python, right? Now, basically, we need to explain the use of split, sub, and subn methods of the RE module in Python. Okay, let's get started the things. So, first of all, I'll be just using that for what all these three functions are actually used. But first, I'll be listing out the use of these functions. So, to modify the strings, Python's RE module, well, Python's RE module is providing to modify the strings. Python's RE module has three functions, and these are split, sub, and subn. So if you just want to modify the strings, and so in that basically Python RE module has three functions, that is split, sub, and subn, right? So these are basically used to modify the strings. Now basically what's the things and what are the differences between all of these things? So we'll be just seeing that here. Right, so let's start with the split functions. I would just write here split and then the bracket like this. Okay, just let me first of all write the T in a fair handwriting, split like this. Bracket, and here goes. Right, let me just come down first of all right here. Okay, now my split function. So it uses a regex pattern, R-E-G-E-X. Okay, it uses a regex pattern to basically to split a given string into a list. Split. Okay, so split is a function that uses a regex pattern to split a given string into a list, right? This is done. Moving towards the second. Okay, we have the second and we have the sub. Okay, second is basically the sub. Let me just come down. Now basically what is the use of the sub? So it finds all substrings where the regex pattern matches and then replace them with a, okay, just 1 second, replace them with the okay, and replace the okay, and replace, it is not the, it is basically replace them. Okay, replace them with a let me come down, and replace them with a different string. So different, and here it goes the string, right? So this is the use of the sub function which we have. So that basically finds all the substrings where the regex pattern matches and then replace them with a different string, right? So basically I hope that you have got a fair and a clear idea regarding this right now. Okay, let me just write here. Now my third option goes that we were having subn. So I would just write subn in here like this, right? Now basically what's the use of the subn? So basically it is similar to subn, Okay, sorry. It is basically similar to the sub function, a little bit of similar, so only basic differences are there that I'll let you know. So it is similar to sub and also returns the new string, or also returns the new string along with the along with the number of replacements. Okay, number of replacements. So this is actually what is the use of the subn function. So this is actually similar to the sub function and also returns the new string along with the number of replacements. So these are the three functions that we have discussed. First one was the split, and the use for that is it uses a regex pattern to split a given string into a list. Second was sub, finds all substrings where the regex pattern matches and then replace them with a different string. Third was subn. So it is basically similar to sub function and also returns a new string along with the number of replacements. Right? So these were the three which we have discussed. Now here comes my next question, and then my next question is that how will you convert a string to all lowercase? Now this is a super easy function. This is a very direct function which actually comes. So we have a direct function in Python programming which is used to convert a string to all lower cases, right? We have a function for converting it into lower cases and for converting it into upper cases as well, right? So let's write out that thing here. So I would just add on this statement. So to convert a string, to convert a string to lowercase, lower function can be used. So lower is basically the function lower function can be used. So to convert a string to lower case, lower function can be used. Right, now let's see a quick example for this thing. So my example, let me just come down. My example goes like, let's say I'm having a string that is my underscore str. And in that string, let's say I have stored Python like this. All of the letters are in caps, right? Now I just want to convert it into the small letters. So simply I would just use out my print statement. Inside my print statement, I would write the variable which I want to convert into small letters. So for me that is my underscore str, right? So my underscore str is a variable in which I have stored my string and I just want to convert that into the lower cases. So my underscore str, and here goes the lower and brackets like this, and this is closed. Right, so this is actually how we just use out the lower function, and as the output you will be getting the Python written in the small letters like this. Okay, so basically I hope I just made this thing very clear to you that how we can convert our string to the lower cases. Fine. Now my fourth question comes here, and that is basically how do break, continue and pass work. Very important and a confusing question in the interviews, that explain me how break, continue and pass works. Right, let's see all of these three here. So let's start with the break function. Okay, so what is the use of break function? So it allows loop termination. It allows the termination of the loop first of all. Okay, so it allows the loop termination when some condition, it allows the loop termination when some condition is met and the control is transferred to the next statement. Right, so this is the very first use of that is the break function. So this is how actually it works. So first of all, it allows the loop termination. Okay, so basically when some condition is met and the control is transferred to the next statement. Okay, let me just write this statement as full. Allows loop termination when some condition is met and the control is transferred to the next statement. Okay, this is actually how the break statement works. Right, now let's see about the continue one, that how this continue function actually works. Right, so continue. Fine, so basically it allows skipping some part. It allows skipping some part of a loop. So it allows skipping some part of a loop when 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 some specific condition and here I will just write that condition. So allows us skipping some part of a loop when some specific condition is met and the control is transferred when the control is transferred to the beginning we double ning when some specific condition is met and the control is transferred to the beginning of the loop. Okay, so this is actually how the continue works. So it allows us skipping some part of a loop when some specific condition is met and the control is transferred to the beginning of the loop. Right? Now, let's move on towards the pass and the last function for this particular question, and that is pass, right? Now, this is basically used when you need to block. It is used when you need to block when you need some block. Okay, when you need some block of code syntactically. Now basically I'll just give you a simple example for this pass function as you can understand it clearly. That let's say you have made a function or you have made a class. Now let's say inside that you do not want to write anything. So if you do not write anything inside that, it will give you error, right? That we cannot just keep them as empty. Whatever the things are that we need to just write it, but you do not want to do that. So in that case, we simply use this pass function. So what it does, it makes that code syntactically correct. Okay, then it will basically when it's run at, it basically does not show you the error. Right? This is actually how this pass function actually works. So pass used when you need some block of code syntactically, but you want to skip its execution. As I mentioned in the simple words as well, that when you have just written some block of code and you just do not want to write anything else inside that and you just want to execute it. So in that case, basically we just use out this pass function. Right? Now, understand the three once again, that how this break, continue and pass actually works. So break works that it allows the loop termination when some condition is met and the control is transferred to the next statement. So basically it allows the loop termination. It allows the loop to stop when some condition is fulfilled and the control of the program is transferred to the next statement, whichever you have written, right? What about the continue? So continue allows skipping some part of a loop when some specific condition is met and the control is transferred to the beginning of the loop. So in continue, actually what happens, that it allows the skipping of some part of a loop. So basically some part of the loop is skipped when some specific condition is met, that is when some specific condition is completed. So in that particular part, this continue skips that, it allows to skip some part of a loop and the control is basically again transferred to the beginning of the loop. In the break, it was transferred to the next statement, right? And in the continue, it is transferred to the beginning of the loop. And pass, I have already told you that actually how this actually works, right? Now, let me just come to the last question for now. And now my last question goes here, that what is Python path? Okay, what is this thing? Okay, now let me just start writing the answer. In that, basically, I will just explain. So first thing, it is an environment. It is an environment right here. So it is an environment variable which is actually used. So it is an environment variable which is used when a module is imported. When a module is imported. So it is an environment variable which is used when a module is imported. Okay, first of all, this is the definition for the Python path. Other than that, whenever a module is imported, whenever a module is imported, okay, so whenever a module is imported, Python path, let me write that in the capitals, Python and PATH, okay. Whenever the module is imported, Python path is also looked up, let me come down here. So it is an environment variable which is used when a module is imported. Whenever a module is imported, Python path is looked up, to check the, okay, just one second, looked up to check the presence of, the imported modules in various directories. This is actually what we just meant from this Python path. So what is Python path? It is an environment variable which is used when a module is imported. Okay. Basically, it is an environment variable which is used when a module is imported. Whenever a module is imported, Python path is also looked up to check the presence of the imported modules in various directions. Right? So basically, I hope that you have got this Python path, that what it actually means. Right? Now, let me just go above and revise out all the questions for once that we have actually discussed today. Right? The very first question that we have discussed, that how is multithreading achieved in Python. After that, we had seen the explain split, subn methods of RE module in Python. After that, we had seen that how will you convert a string to all lowercase. Then we had seen that how do break, continue and pass work. And at last, we had seen that what is Python path. Right? So these are the 5 questions that we had actually seen today. And basically, I hope that you have got a clear and a fair idea regarding all of these 5 questions, that what type of questions are these, how to answer these questions, and basically what is the explanation for all of these. Right, so basically we'll be stopping up here and we'll be meeting in the next videos with some more questions. So this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and take care.